"I'm sure this will be the happiest day of your life," said Ariel, her voice deep, pure, and filled with sincerity, making Brittany smile. "I really hope so," Brittany replied, "but I have doubts about Gabriel. Is it his mother?" Ariel clarified, "Yes. Adrian never told her the whole truth." "Well, let me tell you." Ariel's voice sounded firm and confident. "Firstly, it's not her business. She's not the one getting married. Secondly, all she has to do is be happy that her son is marrying such a beautiful, intelligent, and talented girl like you. Any normal mother would dream of such a bride." Brittany felt her cheeks flush. "Oh, you embarrassed me," Ariel commented with tender laughter. "Why are you blushing if it's not flattery or compliments? Just the truth." Brittany laughed. "Thank you," she said. "Ariel, thank you for everything you do for me." She heard the gentle rustle of Ariel's silk dress, then the scent of green lime and jasmine, Ariel's favorite perfume. And a moment later, she felt Ariel's hands embrace her gently, careful not to wrinkle the dress or disturb the hairstyle, yet holding her firmly. "No, thank you. You're the closest person to me." Brittany took a deep breath because she felt the tears were about to flow down her cheeks. Apparently, Ariel thought the same because she immediately let go, stepped back, and spoke in a business-like tone. "Don't cry, bride. I won't redo the makeup for the second time. And anyway, we have 5 minutes before the exit." "Only 5 minutes?" Brittany gasped. "I'm ready," Brittany said. "Good." Ariel approached the doors leading from the bride's room to the main hall and swung them open. Brittany heard the creaking sound of the doors opening, straightened her shoulders, smiled, and took the first step towards her happiness. Brittany had loved singing since early childhood. She couldn't remember exactly when it started, but her mom, Deborah, always liked to tell the story that Brittany began giving concerts almost before she started walking. It was completely unclear where Brittany got her abilities from. Her parents were far from the world of arts. Her dad worked at a confectionery factory his whole life, fixing various machines and devices, and brought home different treats twice a week. "Bernard, how much more can you bring?" Deborah sighed each time. "We'll all end up getting chubby." Her dad just laughed and, a few days later, brought home another batch of sweets. However, her mother's concerns never came true. Neither she, nor Brittany, nor Gwen, Brittany's younger sister by a year, ever gained weight. "Family generosity is our salvation." Her dad chuckled. The thing was, the sweets brought home were never consumed by the family in the given quantity. Yes, Deborah and the girls were delighted each time their dad brought something new and tasty, and they happily tried it. But, at the same time, they generously shared with everyone around them. Classmates, mom's work friends, close and distant relatives, and even neighbors. "You're a good person." Deborah, the rosy-cheeked and perpetually disheveled Diana, who lived one floor below them, would say. She gratefully nodded, taking a bag of apple pastries, expertly tied the bag in a tight and secure knot, and added, "You should have kept some for yourself." "Diana, treat your kids," Deborah would usually respond. Diana had 3 children, and a husband who didn't work, spending his time lying on the couch, watching Turkish soap operas. "May your generosity and kindness pay off for you and your children in the future," the neighbor would say, then hurriedly go down the stairs. Dinner time was approaching, and it was time to treat the kids with a dessert along with the soup. Deborah instilled kindness and generosity in her daughters, as well as in other children. She worked as a French language teacher at the school where her own kids attended. "Sharing when you have nothing for yourself is foolish," she told her daughters. "But if you have an excess of something and the desire to do good for others, why not share?" The girls quickly absorbed this lesson. Perhaps the example of distributing sweets brought home by their father from work helped them understand. Take what you need for joy, and it's better to share the surplus than try to hoard it, stuffing yourself with things just to prevent them from spoiling. And this lesson extended beyond just food. Deborah also taught them, Help should be given when two conditions are met. First, you want to offer help, and second, you have enough resources and are not acting to your own detriment. And there's also the principle of consent. You are always free to offer, and the one offered to is always free to decline. In general, Britney was brought up in a kind, calm, and loving family. Singing was not a family pursuit for them. By the way, Gwen, Britney's sister, also became interested in the arts, albeit a different one, photography. So, in a way, it was easier for their parents. They enrolled Britney in a music school, set up an old piano at home, given by kind neighbors who also enjoyed sweets, and eagerly attended their daughter's recitals. However, it was more challenging with the young photography enthusiast. There were no clubs in their small town focused on this interest. So, the parents took a different approach. They subscribed to all the photography books they could find, and when they were convinced that the passion would last, they discussed it and eventually got her a trendy camera. Deborah and Bernard tried to support their daughter's hobbies as much as possible. "Will you come to my recital?" Britney would ask hurriedly, finishing her sandwich and tea. "Running late for rehearsal. Does it start at 7:30? Her father clarified, lifting his eyes from under the glasses through which he read his favorite sports column. "Yes, Dad, I'll definitely be there," he said. "Mom, of course, my dear." Her mother smiled, finishing the dishes after breakfast. "Gwen, yes, I'll come." Her sister nodded, not looking up from examining a freshly printed stack of photos. "Where and at what time?" Britney persisted, confident that her sister hadn't even heard what she was asking. Gwen raised her head, rolled her eyes, but answered, "Tonight at 7:30. Cultural Center. Your recital." "Oh, thanks. You're welcome. Look at how cool the photos turned out." "Gwen, let's talk about this later. I have to go out already." Seeing her sister pout in disappointment, Britney sighed, approached her, and sat down beside her. "All right. Just show them quickly." However, as Britney started looking at the photos, she even forgot that she was supposed to be at rehearsal. It seemed that the younger sister indeed had talent. The pictures varied, individual and group shots, candid and staged, taken from afar and up close. Yet, in each one, Gwen managed to capture and convey the familiar traits and features of each family member. There was a photo of Dad and Mom sitting in front of the TV. Through his glasses, you could see that Dad's blue eyes were slightly squinted, eyebrows furrowed, black short graying hair tousled. He was undoubtedly watching some important match. Dad was fully absorbed in the game, but his hand was still extended to have his palm rest on his wife's knee. Mom sat nearby, uninterested in the match. As usual, she was reading something. Only by the slightly tilted head, a barely noticeable smile, and the fleeting gaze of affectionate brown eyes caught by Gwen's camera, it was clear that she was not watching the game but was ready to support and rejoice with her husband at any moment. On the next shot was Gwen herself. She photographed herself in the mirror, full length, just as she was in life. Bald, with pink streaks in her black hair, a pierced left eyebrow, in a loose black t-shirt and matching style pants. Chin up, confidence in her blue eyes. And finally, Britney herself. The random photo she liked the most was taken while she was rehearsing at the piano. She doesn't even remember when her sister took the photo. Britney is seated in a strict dark blue dress with a white collar, accentuating her delicate fair skin. Her long neck is stretched, mouth open, and surprisingly, which is rare in candid photos, it looks beautiful. Britney is singing, and with her overall demeanor, this concert uniform dress, long light hair neatly gathered into a braid, and brown eyes framed by thick light brown lashes, she resembles an elegant little bard. "You're very talented," Britney could only say. "This is amazing." Gwen shrugged casually. "Well, if I'm talented, according to you, then you are definitely a genius in our family." "Britney, you're going to be late," their mother affectionately interrupted their banter. "Right. I forgot already. exclaimed the older daughter and hurried to get dressed. By the time Brittany and Gwen turned 16 and 15, they began contributing to the family budget. Gwen was the initiator. "I need a new skirt for the performance," Brittany sighed one day, twirling in front of the mirror. Over the summer, she had grown significantly, and the skirt, though still fitting perfectly at the waist, was a bit too short. "In the evening, you can tell our parents," Gwen replied, cleaning her camera at that moment. "It feels a bit awkward already," sighed the older sister. "We just bought a new washing machine, and their salary isn't coming anytime soon. They probably don't have much money left." Gwen raised her head and looked attentively at her sister. The tiny wrinkle between her brows, just like their father's, indicated that she was contemplating something. "So let's start earning on our own," she finally said. Brittany turned to her sister in surprise. Strangely, this thought had never crossed her mind before. "Let's do it," she agreed. "But who would hire us? Maybe at a cafe after school. But there aren't many of them around, and they probably won't want high school girls. Or perhaps as a janitor." "Brittany, what are you talking about? A janitor?" impatiently interrupted her younger sister. "You and I have unique and rare skills that we can definitely sell." "Like what?" Gwen sighed and rolled her eyes. "Let's start with something simple. I'm a photographer. I can shoot weddings, do various photo shoots for pregnant women, couples in love, newborns, and all that." Brittany cautiously cleared her throat and sat on the bed. "Well, in theory, the idea is good," she said. "But in practice, who would hire a 9th grader for a wedding photo shoot?" "Oh, I'll handle that." Gwen waved her hand. "I have an excellent portfolio, and I know how to talk to people." "Okay, let's assume that works. What about me? I have a few ideas. Of course, for them, we'll have to tweak your goody two-shoes image a bit." Seeing Brittany's eyebrows raise in protest, Gwen hastily added, "Don't worry. Nothing drastic. I'm not planning to dye you purple or pierce your tongue." "Thanks. That makes me feel better." "Okay, spill it. What have you come up with?" Gwen set aside her camera and moved closer to her sister on the bed. "Well, let's think logically. Where in our town can we sing for money? Weddings, a couple of restaurants in the evenings, various city events, maybe even one of the clubs." "Gwen, are you out of your mind? Our parents will never agree to this, and no one will let me into an adult establishment." "Don't worry," confidently declared the younger sister. "I'll figure something out." And she came up with a plan. Apparently, Gwen was talented not only as a photographer. First of all, on the same evening, the sisters had a talk with their parents. Well, mostly it was Gwen talking, and Brittany just nodded. Initially, their mom and dad were strongly against it. However, after the fierce insistence of the younger daughter and a bunch of arguments from her side, they cautiously agreed, emphasizing that everything would be under their control and so on. Yeah, Gwen quickly agreed. No questions asked. The next step for the sisters was the search for jobs. Gwen quickly found clients for herself. Initially, her age did make some clients, mostly girls, hesitant. However, Gwen's portfolio was genuinely good, and after the first few girls received their photos and were quite satisfied, business picked up. As for Brittany, it was a bit more challenging. Regarding city events, they usually invited participants, such as students from the music school, and, of course, no one paid them for that. The only decent club in town immediately rejected the girls. "Beautiful," they exclaimed to Brittany. "You sing wonderfully. No doubt about that. Come back when you're 18. For now, we regretfully have to decline." The largest restaurant in town also turned them down. "We have a serious adult audience here," said the personnel manager. "A 16-year-old girl doesn't fit in here." Brittany had lost hope and decided secretly to go to a local snack bar the next day. It positioned itself as youth-friendly and was more willing to hire underage staff than others. However, Gwen was not ready to give up. The next day, She took her sister by the hand and almost forcibly led her to a newly opened small restaurant with an unusual name. Gentle Swan, you sing beautifully, the director said thoughtfully to Brittany. A stylish woman in her 40s, with brightly but tastefully accentuated eyes. Thank you, Brittany replied shyly. Are your parents aware of what you're doing here? The woman continued, looking at both sisters in turn. Yes, Gwen immediately responded. If necessary, we'll bring a signed permission from both of them. The woman nodded. And who will study for you? Well, it's almost summer, vacation time. Okay. She glanced thoughtfully at Brittany once again. We'll need to change the repertoire. This is not a school concert. Also, makeup and a dress, of course. Don't worry. We maintain a certain standard here. Okay, Brittany replied, still not fully believing she got the job. Performances on weekends. Plus, rehearsals. Can you manage? Yes. At the thought that she was about to get her first real job and would no longer have to ask her parents for money, Brittany's heart skipped a beat, as if it were ready to leap out of her chest. Gwen was the one who prepared her for her first performance. We need you to look a bit older than your age, she said, carefully applying eyeliner to Brittany, but not overdone. Like 18 or 19 at most. When Brittany looked in the mirror, she was ready to admit that her younger sister had done an outstanding job. The reflection showed both her and someone else. The eyebrows became slightly darker and, as a result, more expressive. Blue eyes, accentuated with shadows and neat eyeliners, seemed larger, and the gaze more mature. Lips, adorned with lipstick in a color almost indistinguishable from the natural color, looked fuller and more vibrant. Additionally, Gwen didn't complicate the hairstyle, just created light, almost imperceptible curls that looked as if it were their natural state. The whole ensemble was completed with a classic blue dress, straight to the knees, with long sleeves and a very modest rectangular neckline. I look like a real adult singer, Brittany exclaimed admiringly. Not taking her eyes off the mirror, Gwen shrugged casually, but it was evident that the compliment pleased her. You look like a sophisticated and experienced singer. Brittany's performance was scheduled for early in the evening. The restaurant director, named Camilla, decided that this would be enough for the first time. She would observe how the guests reacted to the young singer, and then decide whether to increase her presence in the evening program. When Brittany was announced and called to the stage, she felt her legs tremble. Brittany took a deep breath, put on the concert smile rehearsed over the years, and stepped out. She tried to defocus her vision. Before her eyes, a light haze appeared. The girl easily imagined that she wasn't in a large hall, where dozens of bored, unfamiliar eyes casually slid over her. The tempting scent of meat wafted in the air, wine glasses were clinking, and agile waiters were bustling around. No, right now she was in her element, in the familiar old hall of the music school, where she had to perform at another final concert. These concerts, in terms of excitement, were almost indistinguishable from rehearsals for her. Of course, there was a certain nervousness, but after so many years of studying, Brittany hardly noticed it. The illusion only dissipated when she finished singing and heard the loud applause. Brittany looked surprised into the hall. Yes, without a doubt, they were applauding for her. She smiled, bowed, and walked off the stage on wobbly legs. There, a happy Gwen threw herself onto her neck. Hooray! She shouted almost into her sister's ear. You were simply amazing. Everyone loved it. At that moment, Camilla approached them. The expression on the director's face made it impossible to understand what impression the performance had left on her. Brittany even momentarily imagined that she would now say everything was awful and insist that she never set foot in their restaurant again. However, Camilla said something completely different. Brittany, will you stay for one more song? Brittany just nodded. Great, said Camilla, and went to negotiate with the host. Brittany's second performance went even better. The nervousness subsided, and she professionally, unnoticed by the audience, surveyed the hall, noting the expressions on people's faces and the degree of interest and approval. She could see that people enjoyed her performance. Of course, there were those who didn't even look up from their plates and watched her with blatantly bored eyes. But there were few of them. "How did it go?" asked Mom when the daughters returned home. "Not bad," Brittany replied. "Fantastic," said Gwen. Brittany simply amazed everyone with her voice. "Just as we thought. She has a bright future ahead." "My beautiful girls," said Dad, and hugged and kissed each of his daughters in turn. The event was celebrated with a family dinner, during which Deborah and Bernard solemnly promised that they would do everything in their power to nurture and support their daughters' talents. From that time on, Brittany and Gwen devoted more and more time to their respective passions, in addition to their part-time jobs. Of course, this affected the sisters' academic performance to some extent, initially upsetting their parents and causing them to doubt the promise of enthusiastic support for the young talents. After reviewing the report cards and attending parent-teacher meetings, a prolonged, serious conversation took place in the kitchen between Deborah and Bernard. "Maybe we gave them too much freedom that they're not ready for yet," Deborah said anxiously. Her spouse sighed. "Deborah, I don't know how to explain this logically, and don't think I'm prone to mysticism. You know I'm not like that. But on some intuitive level, I feel that we're doing everything right." "But they have exams coming up," his wife countered, not very confidently. "They need to get good grades and medals for admission, and their grades are getting worse. Have you asked them where they plan to apply?" His wife nodded. "Brittany, of course, wants to continue singing, though she's still undecided whether she's closer to opera or pop. And the younger one will continue to take photographs and will look for a place where she can learn to do it even better." "There, everything is fine," smiled the husband. "The girls have made their decisions. They are on the right path. And you, dear, have nothing to worry about." Deborah shook her head gently, with a slight reproach. "Bernard, what about exams? A good certificate, red diplomas, medals?" "Deborah, do we really need all that?" His wife pursed her lips. "Well, why not? You know, from having a red diploma instead of a blue one, our girls won't be any happier." Deborah sighed. She had been teaching children for many years and understood that her husband was right. Meanwhile, Bernard continued, "Of course, we won't let them completely neglect their studies. Let them finish school properly, pass all the required exams, and, of course, focus on the subjects needed for admission. But, honestly, I don't see the point in pushing the girls just for the sake of impressive numbers on paper." "Oh, Bernard, I'm worried," Deborah said. The husband stood up, approached his wife, and embraced her shoulders. "Dear, I understand your concern. But you see, too, that the girls have found their passion and are successfully realizing themselves in it." "Yes, I see it all, Bernard," Deborah sighed. "And I think you're right. We'll make sure they focus on what's necessary for admission, make sure they don't fail exams, and finish school. The rest, well, as best as they can." For the girls, the content of this conversation remained unknown, although they felt its favorable consequences. Gwen's photo sessions were scheduled for a month ahead. Rumors about the young creative photographer quickly spread across the city, and soon-to-be weds, pregnant women, young couples, and people wanting beautiful and unconventional photos all scheduled sessions with her. Gwen had raised the prices twice to reduce the number of bookings and have time for her studies. It helped for a short while, but then the flow of interested clients returned to its previous volume. Brittany was doing well too. She performed regularly at the restaurant and became a local favorite. The administrator told her that some customers only came on the days she performed specifically to listen to her. After a few months, Camilla started helping her find new clients among the regular affluent visitors. One had a wedding, another celebrated their grandmother's anniversary, the third had a corporate event for the opening of a new branch, and so on. Brittany never turned down work. Camilla took such events very seriously. Firstly, she only worked with those she personally knew well. Secondly, she clearly stated that Brittany was a minor and her performance would be at the beginning of the evening when everyone was still sober, and that she only performed at respectable events. In addition, Camilla always stayed in touch with Brittany and made arrangements to bring her home after each event. At first, Brittany was a bit surprised by her boss's kind treatment. Once she gathered the courage to ask her, "Camilla, why are you helping me so much? Do you have a problem with that?" the boss asked, raising her perfectly arched black eyebrows. "Sorry." Brittany immediately blushed. "Of course, I'm very grateful. I mean, why do you do all this for me? You put in so much effort, make arrangements, control everything and so on. Sorry if my question is impolite." Camilla suddenly smiled. "Don't apologize for that, sweetheart. No need. On the contrary, your ability to analyze the situation and ask the right questions is a wonderful quality. Not so common in our time, and therefore even more valuable. I have my benefits from taking care of you." "What are they?" Brittany never thought that her boss could gain something from it. She didn't ask for money from Brittany, and as far as she knew, neither did the clients. "Well, firstly, it benefits me when you perform at big events where there are many wealthy people. Friends and relatives of those whose events I send you to are usually affluent. Someone among these people, seeing you, might become interested in my restaurant. For example, they might come back to hear you again. And there we are with our excellent cuisine, luxurious service, and the best manager." Brittany couldn't help but smile, and Camilla continued, "Secondly, I'm sure you'll grow into a great singer. And who knows, maybe someday you'll remember me with kind words. I'll never forget you. You do so much for me." Thirdly, Camilla continued, "Call it what you want, like female solidarity or something. I remember myself at your age. I worked too, but I didn't have a choice. My father, an unemployed alcoholic, would disappear for months. My mother worked as a nurse in the hospital, supporting me and my two younger sisters. I worked since I was 14. I remember how difficult it was, but still, there were people who reached out to help me. And I'm also ready to extend that hand to you." Camilla fell silent. Brittany looked into her boss's serious black eyes and felt a lump in her throat. Suddenly, she leaned forward and hugged her boss tightly with both hands. Camilla was surprised but responded to the embrace. They stood like that for a few seconds. Then Camilla sighed, pulled away, and said, "You're a good girl, Brittany, and very talented. Never forget that. And don't let anyone in this life convince you otherwise." "Thank you. I'll remember that." On her first attempt, Brittany got into the Arts Institute, specifically in the department for contemporary singers. She debated until the last moment about where to go, but the restaurant job ultimately shifted her focus more towards contemporary art. "You've changed a lot lately," her sister said thoughtfully. "Become much more confident and stronger. I'm not as worried about how you'll live in a big city without me." Brittany smiled. "Of course, I'll miss my little crazy sister," she said. "Good thing you'll be joining me in just a year, and we'll start living together, just like now." "Write to me every day," she said. "Absolutely. And make sure to check your phone, not just your camera." "All right." Brittany settled with her second cousin, the younger sister of Bernard's late mother, Karen. However, it was challenging to label Karen as a typical grandmother. Despite recently turning 60, Karen was born in the same town as Brittany, and her older sister, Bernard's mother, spent her entire life there. She married, had a son, and remained in the town. However, Karen, even in her youth, realized that she wanted an entirely different life for herself. She excelled in school, participated in various conferences, and competed in events. By her last year of high school, she had traveled to almost half the country. Karen played chess not as a goal, but as a means. Through chess, she explored the world beyond her small hometown. After finishing her education, Karen faced a choice. She could either continue and seriously pursue chess, making it her life's work, or find another occupation that she enjoyed and excelled at, helping her fulfill all her desires. She decided that she didn't want to dedicate her entire life to chess. After thinking and analyzing her strengths and weaknesses, she enrolled in the journalism faculty. She studied, worked, participated in all the parties, wrote articles for several magazines, had romances, and did many other things. By the time she received her diploma, the young journalist was already known far beyond the institute. After 2 years of working for a major metropolitan publication, Karen finally landed her dream job as a field correspondent. For the next 30 years, she traveled to various countries, spending very little time in the official apartment she had finally privatized after all those years. Karen enjoyed life, traveled, explored new countries, pursued her beloved work, and engaged in countless romances with foreigners. She declined marriage proposals about 48 times in 32 countries. Marriage didn't interest her at all. However, when Karen reached her 60s, she decided to return home. Constant flights, changes in time zones, and climates became increasingly challenging for her. Therefore, she settled firmly in her favorite apartment, renovated it, and decided not to become a typical retiree. Karen lectured at the faculty she had graduated from many years ago. She took dance and yoga classes and joined a literary circle at the library. She also decided to reconnect with her relatives. Coincidentally, Bernard's oldest niece was entering university, and Karen immediately offered her a place to stay. "I don't even know," Bernard cautiously spoke. "I don't want to cause you any inconvenience now or later. After all, Brittany barely knows you, and you're almost a stranger to her. We'll get to know each other," Karen firmly stated. "The apartment is spacious, and the location is good. We won't get in each other's way. If she wants, she can move out at any time." Indeed, Brittany hardly remembered her second cousin. Karen had visited them only once when her father's mother was still alive, and Brittany was around 10 years old. Therefore, with some apprehension, she called her relative. "Hello, beauty." Karen warmly greeted her. She embraced Brittany, kissed her on the cheek, and stepped back. "You've grown so much," she exclaimed, "and you seem unchanged." Brittany shyly smiled. "Just like the last time you visited us." Grandma waved her hand. "Come into the apartment." The apartment had a modern designer's touch, with light-colored walls, mint green sofas, and armchairs. The living room featured a wall-sized television. "Let me show you your room," said Grandma. However, she didn't resemble the typical grandma either. With shoulder-length light hair in a slightly tousled style, a casual sports suit, and a well-maintained figure, Karen looked as if she could be around 40 from behind. Brittany loved her room too. It was spacious, bright, with a queen-sized bed, a massive wardrobe, a full-length mirror, and a tender green desk and chair. "Wow, it's beautiful," exclaimed the admiring granddaughter. "Make yourself at home," nodded Grandma. "Here are your set of keys, mine, a spare, and one with my friend. He lives in the neighboring building. I have yoga in half an hour. I don't want to be late. The refrigerator is at your complete disposal." Thus, a new chapter in Brittany's life began. Sometimes, Brittany wondered how her life would have turned out if certain people hadn't surrounded her at crucial moments. Would she have pursued a modern direction if Camilla hadn't helped her advance in the restaurant? And how would her education have unfolded if her grandmother hadn't supported her all these years? She quickly bonded with Karen, who showed no signs of a traditional grandmother. She didn't force Brittany to eat more, and most importantly, she didn't impose rules. "You have the keys. Come and go as you need. My place has good soundproofing, and I sleep soundly, so you won't disturb my peace," declared Karen on the first day. "You tidy up your room yourself. I won't force other household duties on you, but I won't refuse help. Accommodation and food are on me. Your entertainments and other stuff are on you." "I understand," mumbled Brittany, expecting an endless list of rules and instructions. "You can tell me anything," Karen continued. I won't report to your parents. Live as you want. Do what you want. Okay, Karen, Brittany said. Of course, at first, she would return home immediately after classes. Naturally, she didn't have guests, and Brittany behaved well. She also helped around the house cleaning and cooking. It wasn't challenging with the abundance of mechanical assistants in the apartment. A robot vacuum, window washer, dishwasher, multi-cooker, and a new washing machine that practically allowed you to wear freshly laundered clothes immediately. In short, Brittany quickly adapted to the apartment, but studying turned out to be more challenging. In her hometown, Brittany was used to being among the top students, and she didn't have to exert any special effort for that. However, here, the competition was tens of times higher. Brittany was not a young star here. She was just one of the hundreds of boys and girls who came to the capital chasing their dreams. Everyone was uniquely talented and gifted, and ordinary efforts were not enough to stand out. Brittany tried hard. She diligently studied, listened to every word of the teacher, completed all assignments, but still went unnoticed. Sometimes, she was amazed at how easy other students approached their studies, like Anna Smith. Looking at her, Brittany experienced strange feelings, as if she saw her alter ego, a version of herself from a parallel world. The girls were similar, roughly the same height and build, both with long light hair and brown eyes. Brittany objectively had better vocal skills, yet looking at Anna, Brittany felt like her pale shadow. No one noticed Brittany, but whenever Anna entered the room, heads turned from all present guys and a good portion of girls. It wasn't that Anna dressed brightly, vulgarly, or loudly every day. No, she could come in a short dress or in jeans with a loose white t-shirt, and the effect was the same. It was about some inner freedom and boldness that Brittany couldn't afford. Brittany was both irritated and fascinated by this. However, when she realized that she was losing to Anna in something, she considered herself better by default and understood that she had to do something. Of course, it was about singing. Since the girls were similar, they were often placed side by side and compared, deciding who should sing a more interesting song. For example, Brittany could clearly see that her performance style was better, but the teacher shook her head and said, "No, Anna Smith will sing." Then Brittany, in a moment of frustration, said, "The voice is good, but with your performance style and appearance, one can die of boredom." While everyone will be watching Anna from the last row without looking away. After that class, Brittany came home feeling out of sorts. The accumulated fatigue, stress, and a sense of hopelessness from putting in so much effort for months without results overwhelmed her. She hoped that Karen would be at yoga or dance class, but her grandmother, as luck would have it, was sitting in the living room, watching some show on the huge television, either about the Maldives or Bali. "Good evening, Karen," Brittany quickly said, trying to slip unnoticed into the room. "Good evening, Brittany," her grandmother replied, suspiciously looking at her, assessing how her day went. Brittany froze at the doorway. Not answering the question would be impolite. "Everything's fine," she said, "just very tired. Want to sleep." She tried to finish the maneuver and slip into the room, but her grandmother suddenly shouted in a sharp, loud voice Brittany had never heard before. "Stop." Brittany froze. Calmly, her grandmother added, "Brittany, come here, please." "Okay," Brittany timidly replied. "Sit on the couch next to me." Brittany S80, "Look me in the eyes." Brittany looked. Her grandmother's eyes were just like her father's, blue. She looked attentively and somehow very kindly. "What's wrong, dear?" she softly asked. "Nothing." Brittany swallowed. She never knew how to lie. Karen sighed. "Brittany, we've talked about this. You can talk to me about anything that bothers you. I won't force you or insist. But please, think again. If you say now, Karen, leave it. I won't bring it up again. But if something is bothering you, I'm ready to listen." Brittany shifted on the couch. "Sorry, Karen," she muttered. I didn't want to bother you with my problems. Grandma nodded seriously. I understand. You're mature, serious, independent. It's good that you don't want to burden someone else. But this is a different case. I'm offering you help, so you can accept it. Start. Brittany began. At first, it was difficult for her to convey her thoughts. She was afraid she would appear as a silly little girl with made-up problems in her grandmother's eyes. However, with each word, it became easier to talk. She poured out all her anxieties to her grandmother, how difficult her studies were, how the teachers and other students didn't notice her, and her competition with Anna. Karen listened very attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions, and her expression revealed nothing. Yes, girl, she finally said thoughtfully when Brittany finished. We have something to work on. Brittany looked at her grandmother in surprise. Don't be surprised, she replied. We'll make you a star. At least on a sitter scale at first, and then, perhaps, on a global one. Karen, maybe we shouldn't. We should. Brittany, we should. Karen stood up and waved her hand to her granddaughter. Let's go to my room. Brittany had never been there before. Karen's room was larger than her own, but similarly bright and modernly furnished. The first thing Brittany noticed was a large mirror embedded in the front wall of the wardrobe. They stood in front of it. All right, look at yourself, commanded her grandmother. Brittany timidly raised her eyes, and the mirror reflected a frightened pale girl back at her. Straighten your shoulders, her grandmother gently commanded. Brittany tried to do it, but it felt like some weight was pressing down on her from above, and her muscles refused to straighten in the right direction. Imagine you're on stage, advised her grandmother. Instantly, her shoulders straightened on their own, her head lifted, and Brittany even smiled. Good. Karen nodded approvingly. Do you know what a confidence corset is? No, it's when you assume a posture like you are now, head held high, without changing your body position. Say now, I'm not confident, I'm small. Brittany began, and her shoulders began to droop. Don't change the posture. The girl quickly straightened up. I'm small, Brittany. She paused and laughed because it was challenging to speak uncertainly in such a pose. Got it? Asked her grandmother. Yes, wear the confidence corset as often as you can. Okay, the foundation is laid. Now, let's talk about your appearance. Is there something you want to change about yourself? Brittany shrugged. I don't know. I never really thought about it. We always had Gwen with a bold appearance and experiments, and I was just the older sister, studying at the music school. Well, now you're in a modern direction. Probably you have many students who look unconventional. Actually, yes. How do you feel about them? Karen inquired. Fine. Everyone has the right to express themselves as they want. And how do you want to express yourself? I don't know. All right, we'll put that aside for now. Karen muttered. Let's think about your studies. Why do you think teachers don't notice you? Why do they prefer Anna over you? Because she handles herself better on stage. If I remember correctly, you've been working in restaurants, singing at weddings, and such for several years now. Yes, the girl nodded. So, you have experience. Yeah, then what's going wrong there? Brittany sighed and shrugged. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying too hard, she confessed, doing everything right and holding back. Karen nodded. I think I understand. Get ready. We're going somewhere now. They arrived at the park. Brittany had never been here before. As they ventured closer to the center, she heard lively, cheerful, and very familiar music. What's happening here? She asked. Tonight is the free dance evening, Karen replied, and you and I will be actively participating in it. What is a free dance evening? Grandma shrugged. It's everything you can imagine when you hear that name. People of all kinds come here, young and old, those who can dance professionally, and those who have never done it in their lives. Different melodies play, and then everyone dances as they please. There are no rules. I can't imagine how that is, Brittany honestly admitted. You'll see for yourself now. As they approached the venue, Brittany saw a small platform illuminated by pleasant soft lights, with several garlands hanging above it. About 50 people were dancing on the platform. It was the most unusual sight Brittany had ever seen. There were elderly men and women, probably in their 80s, a couple of moms with strollers, a woman in a business suit with high heels and a strict hairstyle, and a group of 12-year-old teenagers. And all these people were dancing, completely uncoordinated, non-rhythmic, and asynchronous. It seemed strange that they were all doing this to the same music. "Why are you hesitating?" Brittany nudged Karen gently. "We are going to dance too." She took her granddaughter's hand and led her to the center of the platform. Brittany thought with horror that everyone would now be watching them. However, glancing around discreetly, she realized that no one cared about the new dancers. Each person was busy with themselves or the company they came with. "Karen," Brittany began, but, looking at her grandmother, saw that she had already closed her eyes and started swaying slowly to the music, making smooth movements with her hands. Brittany took a deep breath and tried to relax. Maybe she should close her eyes too. So she did. It became easier. The music became louder and calmer, and Brittany felt as if her body was slowly floating through the air. Images began to form in her mind. Brittany saw her legs lifting off the floor, and a stream of delicate white and pink petals carried her away, swirling in a dance. Her body became light and free. She couldn't tell how long this state lasted. She only snapped out of it when the melody ended, replaced by a faster composition. Brittany opened her eyes and saw her grandmother in front of her, looking at her with a smile. "How was it?" Karen asked. "It's like magic." Brittany could only reply, "I knew you'd feel that. Let's go to a cafe, have a cup of coffee with a croissant for energy, and then come back for some more dancing." "I'd love to." They returned home quite late that day. After dancing, they stopped by a small boutique Karen knew, and there Brittany chose a long, mint-colored sheath dress. It perfectly complemented her figure and matched her mood at that moment. "It suits you well," Grandma said. "It was waiting for you," the saleswoman told Brittany. "There was some mistake in the warehouse, and they brought it only in one color and size. No one else liked it, but then you came, and it fit perfectly." "I'll take it," Brittany said with a smile. Of course, she went to class the next day wearing that dress. In it, she felt like a fantasy hero donning magical armor that made them invincible. Like Perseus putting on winged sandals for the battle with Medusa. The latter, by the way, didn't keep her waiting. "Brittany, you're late today," the teacher remarked coldly as she stepped into the classroom. "Sorry," Brittany said cheerfully, not lowering her head as usual. She didn't forget about the confidence corset. The teacher raised her eyebrows, scrutinized Brittany from head to toe, but said nothing. "So, today is an interesting day for you. We will learn to sing duets. It's crucial for girls and boys to be able to sing together, since you more or less know each other. To make it less straightforward, you'll sing with the second-year students." The students whispered excitedly, and Brittany blushed. She had never had to perform a duet, let alone with an unfamiliar young man. "They will choose you themselves because they have more experience, and it will be useful for you to practice presenting yourselves to the audience once again. You can imagine you came for an audition." The second-year students entered the hall. Although they were only a year older, they behaved quite arrogantly. They confidently took their seats without paying attention to the nervous first-year students. "Well, why are you standing there?" the teacher asked. "Let's begin." A petite, fragile girl with short black hair stepped onto the stage. "Dear lady, perform an excerpt from any song of your choice." Brittany was so nervous that she didn't even remember which song her classmate sang. She just saw that after she finished, one of the second-year guys lazily raised his hand. "Great, we have our first pair," the teacher announced. Brittany couldn't help but wonder what would happen to those girls and guys no one chose. Soon enough, she got the answer. After one of the boys performed, none of the second-year girls raised their hand. "Okay," the teacher said. "Sit somewhere in the hall, and I'll assign you a partner later. Anna, you're next." She continued. Brittany involuntarily turned her head and looked at Anna. She walked onto the stage calmly and confidently, with a smile, as if going for a walk. While she sang, Brittany had to admit that Anna had a pretty good voice. Not genius, but good. Brittany chose Anna for how effortlessly she held herself on stage, moved, smiled, and engaged with the audience. When Anna finished, a forest of hands shot up. It seemed that even some who had already chosen a partner changed their minds upon seeing Anna. The teacher chuckled. "All right, Anna, you can choose your singing partner." Anna smiled and sat next to a tall, handsome guy in the front row. Well, no doubts there, Brittany thought. It's unclear why he's even studying. He's already performing in a youth group and quite a well-known singer. The closer her turn came, the more anxious Brittany felt. She couldn't shake the image of finishing her song with no second-year student raising their hand. Brittany sat as far from the stage as possible, leaned against the wall, and closed her eyes. "Brittany." The teacher's voice echoed. Brittany opened her eyes in fright. "So," the teacher said, inexplicably softly, "let's make it so that you perform like a superstar right now. Understood? Show them what you've got." Brittany nodded slightly, not understanding what was happening. "You have the best potential in the class," Kimberly continued. "Pull yourself together and give everyone a masterclass. Sing like usual. Just don't stand there like a statue. Smile at least." After that, the teacher casually returned to her place and continued overseeing the auditions. Brittany, on the other hand, felt glued to her spot. What just happened? Did they compliment her? Said she had the best potential in the class? No one ever noticed her. No, it definitely happened for real. Unexpectedly, Brittany felt confident. "I need to recall everything Karen and I talked about yesterday," she thought. Confidence corset. Check. Genuine smiles. Check. Move as I feel. Check. I'm wearing the most beautiful dresses in the world. Check. "Brittany, you're next." Brittany took a deep breath, exhaled, stood up, straightened her shoulders, lifted her head, and smiled. With ease and speed, she ascended the stage, scanned the audience, smiled even wider, and began to sing. She imagined herself not in front of the second-year students' hall, boldly watching her, but singing to people with whom she danced yesterday on the POC stage. Light, joyful, moving freely as they wanted, deriving pleasure from every action. Also, completely disregarding others and passing no judgment. When Brittany fell silent, complete silence filled the hall. However, a moment later, a deep male voice pierced through. "I'm in." Brittany squinted. Whether from the glaring lamps or the fact that the person behind the voice sat far away, in the back rows, she couldn't make out who it was. Nevertheless, she carefully descended from the stage and headed towards the voice. Obviously disoriented, Brittany moved cautiously towards the back. The same voice repeated, "I'm here," sitting in the last row. Finally, Brittany reached her destination. The guy was sitting in the farthest and darkest corner. Only now, approaching quite closely, could she properly see him. The guy was tall, probably a bit over 2 meters. Brittany herself wasn't small by women's standards, but still, compared to him, she seemed petite, broad-shouldered. A pale blue shirt seemed ready to burst on his chest and shoulders, though it was well fitted. Surely, he's into some kind of sport, perhaps weightlifting or something similar. Straw red hair and a beard of the same color, small, neat, and complementing his face, and bright blue eyes. "I'm Adrian," he said, with the same deep voice but now calmly. "Brittany, pleasure to meet you. You have the most beautiful voice of all I've heard," he complimented. "Thank you." Brittany blushed slightly and thought she should say something nice in return. But what? Praise his voice in return? But she hadn't heard him sing. Nothing else came to her mind. "Have you sung a duet before?" Adrian interrupted her train of thought. "No." Brittany nodded for emphasis. "Never in my life." The guy smiled. I haven't either. Oh, what's oh? Sorry. I just thought that if one of us had sung before, it would be easier, she muttered. Don't worry about it. With your splendid skills, we'll outperform everyone. You'll see. Brittany wasn't as optimistic. Meanwhile, the distribution was over. The teacher arranged everyone into pairs and announced that it was time to start the training. Okay, pairs, come to me. Let's get the task. Brittany and Adrian stood up and walked towards the stage. As they had to cross the entire hall, they received the task among the very last. Well, said the teacher with a tone that didn't bode well. Adrian and Brittany. I couldn't think of a better duet. Came in the very last. So, you've got the most challenging composition. Brittany swallowed nervously. But Adrian appeared completely calm. All right, Kimberly, he simply said, flashing a wide smile. The teacher rolled her eyes and handed them the lyrics. Brittany quickly scanned through the sheets of paper. Indeed, the task was challenging, considering that neither of them had any experience. Great, Adrian said contentedly, studying the text. Why? Brittany asked, surprised. Why? Adrian raised an eyebrow. Is it interesting to engage in something light that any tone-deaf fool can sing? There won't be any professional growth in that. Brittany thought about it, mentally agreed, and decided that it was probably for the best the way things turned out. Besides, she liked Adrian. There was something about him that exuded reliability and confidence. Next to him, Brittany felt capable of overcoming anything. A surprise awaited them at the end of the class when everyone had tried their hand at singing. And Kimberly, of course, could only roll her eyes and disapprovingly shake her head. When, finally, the exhausted first and second year students were ready to disperse, she clapped her hands loudly, attracting everyone's attention, and announced, in case you were wondering, this was not a one-time event. Duet sessions will now be a regular part of your training. Kimberly continued, a bit embarrassed. Sessions are not all. At the end of the semester, there will be a final concert. I will personally select the 3 best duets to perform at this concert. And the 2 that the jury deems the best will get a pass for the exams. The first and second years split up, each group going in its own direction. Adrian and Brittany were the only ones left. This is awesome, Adrian exclaimed joyfully. Well, consider the exams already in our pocket. Brittany raised her eyebrows in surprise. Where does this confidence come from? I'm always confident. You sing better than anyone. That's enough. We just need to start rehearsing together, and we'll definitely outshine everyone. Though Brittany wasn't so sure about that, Adrian's enthusiasm was contagious. Can I have your phone number? Adrian asked. I'll text you after classes, and we'll arrange a meeting. Sure. They exchanged numbers and went their separate ways. Brittany flew home as if on wings. Karen, she shouted in the hallway. Are you home? What happened? Grandma immediately rushed into the corridor, and judging by her appearance, she was clearly getting ready to go somewhere. Light makeup, earrings in the form of small rhombuses, an elegant light gray suit. You look wonderful, Brittany said. Thank you. Karen smiled. And why are you so dressed up? Grandma flirtatiously glanced upward and shrugged slightly. Can't a woman dress up a bit? Well, an old acquaintance from the newspaper where I used to work a long time ago called, invited me to a restaurant for dinner. Oh, that's great. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you, dear. And you today. Not only do you look beautiful, but you also glow. Tell me, what's going on? I'll tell you. But you. Seeing her grandmother frowning, Brittany quickly corrected herself. You're going on a date, right? Maybe after. Karen waved her hand. Don't worry. I have half an hour to spare. Let's go to the kitchen. I'll feed you in the meantime. Brittany followed her grandmother to the kitchen, where Karen poured a plate of rich, fragrant mushroom soup for her granddaughter, added crunchy croutons, and poured herself a cup of tea. In principle, half an hour was enough to tell about all the events of today. Thanks to you, Karen, Brittany concluded her story. Grandma smiled contentedly. Thanks for the acknowledgement, granddaughter. But it's all thanks to you, really. It's your merit. And I just helped. True. Now I'm worried about the performance. Write to that guy Adrian. Arrange a rehearsal. If anything, you can even sing here. Thank you. You're welcome. Grandma stood up and placed the cup in the dishwasher. Well, I have to go. Have a nice evening. And to you. When Brittany was alone, she messaged Adrian. Hi. It's Brittany. Wanted to check about the rehearsal. Oh, hi. I was just about to write to you. How about tomorrow? My classes finish at 3. Great. I'll be waiting for you at the exit. Deal. See you. After the screen went dark, Brittany thought about what to wear to university tomorrow. Catching herself thinking about it, she was surprised because she hadn't thought about such things before. Eventually, she settled on a light white sweater and a red skirt slightly above the knee. In the morning, she got up early, styled her hair, and put on some makeup. When she came down for breakfast, Karen immediately remarked, "Good morning, Brittany. You look lovely." "Thank you, Karen. You too. How was your date?" Grandma grinned cunningly. "Everything went well. Thank you. I assume you have one today." Brittany blushed slightly. "It's not a date, just a rehearsal." Well, Brittany realized what awaited her when classes were over. During the last lecture, she stared at the large clock in the auditorium so often that her head began to ache, and her eyes blurred from constant tension. Finally, the class ended, and Brittany barely suppressed the urge to run with all her might. "Hi," Adrian said to her, smiling broadly. Brittany noticed that faint freckles adorned his nose and the part of his cheek not covered by the beard. They contrasted so much with his towering height, broad shoulders, and resonant voice that the girl couldn't help but smile. "Hi, how are you? How was your day?" "Everything's good. Thank you." "And yours?" "Everything's excellent." "Where are we rehearsing?" "I know a place you'll like. Let's go." Brittany thought they would rehearse somewhere in an empty auditorium, so she was surprised when Adrian confidently strode towards the street. They approached a large, beautiful white car. Brittany didn't know much about cars. "Please, have a seat," Adrian said, skillfully and gently opening the door in front of her. Brittany sat cautiously. The interior smelled pleasantly of leather and something else delightful. She blissfully inhaled the air. "Do you like it?" Adrian asked, smiling while fastening his seatbelt. At one point, he leaned, and Brittany leaned too, fastening her seatbelt. They almost bumped foreheads. Brittany shyly recoiled, and so did Adrian. "Ready to go?" he asked in a slightly hoarse voice. "Yes," Brittany replied quietly, turning towards the window. They drove for about 15 minutes. Then Adrian parked in some alley. "We're here. Let's go." "Where are we?" Brittany asked. Adrian winked mysteriously. "You'll see for yourself in a moment." He led her through some backyards, and they approached an inconspicuous iron door of a large gray building. Adrian took a key from his pocket, glanced around, and opened the door. They walked through a narrow, dark corridor. Adrian confidently turned in different directions periodically, and Brittany couldn't figure out where they were. "Close your eyes," he suddenly asked. "Why?" Brittany wondered. "You'll like it." Brittany sighed and obediently closed her eyes. Adrian gently took her hand and led her a few more steps. Brittany heard something moving, resembling heavy curtains, and then the echo of footsteps changed. "You can open them," she heard. Brittany saw that she was standing on a small stage facing the auditorium. "Is this a theater?" she asked in surprise. "Yeah," Adrian joyfully replied. "My good friend works here." "Hello." A joyful female voice rang out. Brittany turned around and saw a beautiful, tall, slender girl coming towards them. "I'm Ariel," the girl said. "That good friend." Unabashedly, she approached Brittany and hugged her tightly. Brittany smelled a pleasant fragrance. "I'm Brittany," she could only respond, reciprocating the hug. Ariel stepped back and looked at Brittany. "Adrian said you sing very well." "Oh." Brittany looked embarrassedly at Adrian. And he just smiled. I'm a singer too. Ariel said, I work in a musical theater. Here. She gestured around the space. This is not the main stage. It's rarely used, so we can rehearse here. How great. The girl appeared slightly older than Brittany. Okay. I understand you both have no experience in singing and duets. Adrian asked you to train. Ariel said, yes, I've never sung like this before. Ariel nodded. I think we'll figure it out quickly. They began their rehearsal. Ariel turned out to be an excellent teacher, and Brittany and Adrian were diligent students. Despite it being Brittany's first time meeting Ariel and the second for Adrian, she felt completely calm and comfortable with them. Great job. Very cool. Ariel commented. Time passed unnoticed. Well, it's already late. Ariel said, looking at her elegant wristwatch. That's enough for today. Yes, girls, let's stop working. It's time for dinner. Ariel and I plan to do that after the rehearsal. Brittany. He turned to the girl and said in a faint, stern voice, I'm warning you in advance that refusal is not accepted. Brittany smiled. Well, a meal would certainly do her good right now. She rubbed her eyes, either from the bright light or tension. Her vision seemed to have blurred. She'd have to schedule an appointment with an ophthalmologist sometime. But that could wait. When there's time. Okay, Brittany replied. From the conversation in the car between Adrian and Ariel, it was evident that they had been communicating and friends for many years. Yet, there was no awkwardness between them. The kind that is sometimes felt between a guy and a girl pretending to be friends while secretly desiring more. But between Ariel and Adrian, there was an easy and lively interaction. Their friendship felt effortlessly believable. How do you feel about suspicious places for public dining? Ariel asked, turning to Brittany. She shrugged. I don't know. Probably okay. Ariel laughed. I wouldn't want you to get scared and run away. I won't run away. Ariel, don't exaggerate. Adrian objected. It's perfectly decent there. The girl rolled her eyes. Decent by men's standards, maybe. Girls don't go to such places, but you do. Haha. But only with you. Ariel smirked. Although, if Brittany likes it, we'll go there even without you. They pulled up to a small eatery. At first glance, Brittany understood the cause of the disputes. Indeed, it was a small building with an old, peeling sign. The interior wasn't much better, some old tables, sofas with worn seats. But it was clean. Ariel confidently waved Brittany over, and they went to claim a table, while Adrian went to order food. So, how do you like it? Ariel asked. Brittany shrugged. Not as bad as you described. Then everything is fine. You'll definitely like the food. After a few minutes, Adrian returned with a tray full of food. Well, Brittany exclaimed. Is all of this for us? Yes, Adrian affirmed. Let's dig in, girls. Brittany's friends didn't disappoint. She was hungry, and although it was evident she was enjoying the food, the place didn't look much like a fast food restaurant. Yet the quality of the food was much higher. Oh yes. Ariel sighed, leaning back on the sofa blissfully. This day turned out great. Completely agree. Adrian added. I'm really glad. Guys, Brittany said. How much do I owe for dinner? Adrian's eyebrows shot up in protest. Brittany, you offend me. Adrian, it's awkward for me. It's awkward for me too. Brittany, Ariel said with a smile. Please get used to men's attention. Brittany shyly lowered her eyes but remained silent. Adrian drove her home and bid her goodbye. She was in a great mood, sharing everything with her grandmother, who returned from her book club meeting and went to sleep full of pleasant memories. The following days flowed with interesting and joyful moments. Almost every day after classes, Adrian picked up Brittany, and they went to Ariel's theater to rehearse. Usually, the three of them went out to dinner afterward. Brittany found it easy to communicate with both of them. However, it turned out they had individual plans as well. Once, nearing the weekend, Ariel asked, Brittany, any plans for tomorrow? Brittany shrugged. Not really. Do you want to go for a massage tomorrow? It's all free. My sister is opening her own small spa salon. She needs, let's say, testers. Evaluate the quality of services. Hey. Adrian interjected indignantly. I want a massage too. Ariel waved him off. It's a girls' night out. Find something else to do. Fishing. Hunting. Beer in the garage, whatever you guys do for fun. Eck. Stereotypes. Adrian muttered offendedly. What are your plans? Brittany asked. I'm going fishing with my dad. The girls burst into laughter. And then over the weekend, they met near the spa. Ariel's older sister, Angelina, turned out to be a pleasant girl. Girls, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to accompany you all day. I have a bunch of things to finish before the opening. Angelina apologized. No problem. Ariel nodded. Shall we start with the massage? Ariel asked Brittany. Let's. They were placed side by side in a small cozy room, where the pleasant scent of essential oils filled the air, and soft, calming music played. Two lovely girls began to massage them. Brittany, Ariel asked after a few minutes. Did Adrian tell you how we met? No, Brittany replied, keeping her eyes closed. How did it happen? We lived in the same yard since childhood, but we didn't talk. I'm 3 years older than him, and at that age, it was a big age difference. How old were you then? I was 10, and he was 7. Once I was walking home from school, and a big dog attacked me. Adrian saw it and protected me. Well, the dog almost bit him, but he still defended me and walked me home. And then you started talking. Yes. I made him come into my house and told everything to my mom. She gave us tea and then took us to his parents. By the way, our parents still keep in touch. What a beautiful story. It is, agreed Ariel. Adrian is genuinely a wonderful person. It seems so. Do you like him? Ariel suddenly asked. Brittany blushed. I don't know, she evasively said, hoping to end the questioning. Well, he's a good friend, and if not just a friend, I don't understand what you mean. Brittany, don't play dumb. You understand everything. Ariel, I'm not ready to talk about such topics. The massage therapist chuckled reservedly, but Ariel seemed indifferent. Okay. She finally gave in. They didn't talk for the rest of the massage. Afterward, they decided to try body wraps. Here's the list, the girls said. Choose. Brittany took a beautifully designed list. The font seems a bit blurry, she complained to Ariel. Probably the printer didn't do a good job. What? Ariel didn't understand and took the paper from her friend. Ariel looked at it for a few seconds and then returned it to Brittany. You mean you can't read what's written here? I can read, Brittany replied, but the letters are a bit fuzzy. Ariel frowned. Brittany, the font is quite clear. I don't want to be rude, but you might need an eye check. Sorry. Brittany looked at the list again, bringing it closer to her face, and the letters became clear. Seems like you're right, she told her friend. I need to get my eyes checked. I've noticed that my eyes get tired easily lately. Yeah, you should definitely go, Ariel supported. Health is a serious matter. By the way, I'll go for the chocolate option. Me too. Sounds delicious. It smelled delicious as well. Brittany was afraid Ariel would bring up the topic of Adrian again, but apparently, she decided that today was enough for that. Have you thought about what you want to do after finishing your studies? Where and how you'll perform? Ariel unexpectedly asked. No, I don't know, Brittany replied. Still not sure. I enjoyed singing in restaurants, performing at weddings when I was in school. But of course, now I want something more substantial. Do you know that there will be many interesting and influential people at the concert? What are you talking about? Well, often, concerts attract people who are scouting for new stars, Ariel explained. Ariel, I've just managed to calm my nerves before performing, and you're reviving them. Brittany, it's normal and right to think about your future. You need to get used to the scale. Okay, I'll think about your words. The remainder of the day went wonderfully. They enjoyed a delicious and fragrant tea before heading home. Brittany never got around to having her eyes checked. There was just too much going on with concert preparations, studies, and her friendship with Ariel and Adrian. Of course, she started noticing that her eyes got tired quickly, and by evening, her vision was significantly blurred. But in the morning, her eyesight seemed normal. "Have you been to an ophthalmologist?" Ariel asked her at some point. "No, not yet," Brittany replied. "I'm sure everything is fine. I'm just tired." "Start doing eye exercises at least," her friend suggested, "or use eye drops for dryness." "Okay, I'll start." After the conversation with Ariel about Adrian, Brittany began to notice that he seemed to be showing signs of interest in her. While initially, he interacted with both Ariel and Brittany in a similar and even manner, lately, he unmistakably started singling out Brittany. "Do you spend every weekend with Ariel now?" he asked her once. Caught off guard by such a question, Brittany was a bit flustered. "Well, mostly, yes," she cautiously answered. "We've become good friends, and we enjoy spending time together. Thanks for introducing me to Ariel, and sorry if I'm taking her away from you." "On the contrary," he grumbled angrily, staring ahead without looking at Brittany. "What do you mean? On the contrary, maybe I also want to spend time alone with you." Brittany blushed, surprising even herself with boldness. She quietly said, "Well, don't complain that Ariel and I often hang out. Just invite me on a date." As she said this, she got scared. What if Adrian didn't mean that? What if she was just another friend to him, like Ariel, and he simply wanted to hang out with her as a friend? Fortunately, the girl's fears were not confirmed. "When are you free this week?" Adrian asked. "On Saturday." "All right. I'll pick you up after lunch on Saturday." "Okay. What are we going to do?" "You'll see." With these words, he dropped her off near her home. "Well?" Karen asked, smiling contentedly, when Brittany returned from her date with Adrian on Saturday night. "Are you two officially dating now?" "Perhaps." Partly, her life experience and insight helped her come to this conclusion, and partly, the large bouquet of delicate coral lilies in Brittany's hands and her flaming cheeks, burning brighter than the flowers in the bouquet. "Yes," Brittany managed to say. The date went wonderfully. They had dinner in a beautiful small restaurant with a view of the river, and then Adrian confessed his feelings to her. "Brittany," he began, "I've liked you for a very long time. Honestly, at first, I thought you were only talking to me because we had to work together. Then you became friends with Ariel, and I got even more sad. But recently, for some reason, I've had hope suddenly. Maybe foolish and unfounded, but hope nonetheless." "Adrian," Brittany tried to interrupt the flow of his thoughts, but the guy vigorously shook his red head and waved his long arms so desperately that Brittany, fearing he might accidentally overturn the table, fell silent. He looked at Brittany with such a pleading, piercing gaze from his big blue eyes that her heart squeezed. She realized that this was the decisive moment when she needed to gather all her courage and respond to him. "Adrian, I like you too." Her voice sounded softly, almost inaudible against the backdrop of the usual restaurant noise. The clinking of glasses, the clatter of knives and forks on plates, and the subdued music. But Adrian still heard every word. The tense anticipation slowly faded from his face, giving way to a broad, happy smile. "Will you go out with me?" he asked. "Yes." He reached out his large, broad hand, gently taking Brittany's hand. In that moment, she understood how long she had wanted this moment to come. "That's it." Brittany concluded her story to her grandmother and looked again at the lilies standing in the luxurious vase made of pale green glass that Karen brought from a European country that had long ceased to exist. The vase stood on one edge of the windowsill, while on the opposite side, there was a thin porcelain vase painted in a Chinese style. Actually, the vase was from China. It held a luxurious bouquet of red roses that Karen received from another admirer. While examining the flowers, Brittany suddenly caught herself thinking that even though they were not far away, She saw them unclearly. I really should make an appointment with an ophthalmologist, she said, frowning. An ophthalmologist? Her grandmother asked. Do you have problems with your eyes? Yes, lately, things have been getting blurry in the evenings, the girl replied. Maybe I strain my eyes too much during the day, or it could be a reaction to the spotlights and all. Karen frowned. I know a good clinic. I'll call them tomorrow and schedule an appointment for you. Okay, thank you. The next day, she couldn't wait for the classes to end to see Adrian. There was very little time left until the end of the semester, and after a few rehearsals, they would have to present their performance to Kimberly, who would choose 3 duets to include in the final concert. Hello, Brittany said to Adrian. He approached, leaned in, and kissed her gently and quickly on the lips. Brittany blushed. Shall we go? Let's go. Fastening her seatbelt, Brittany said, it's hard to believe that in a week, we'll be singing in front of Kimberly. Adrian shrugged. I'm not even worried about it. We'll easily make it to the top 3 finalists. You're so confident. Why doubt? I've heard how we sing. Brittany laughed, and they drove to the theater to meet Ariel. Although neither Brittany nor Adrian told Ariel that they started dating, a single glance at them was enough for her to guess about the changes that had taken place. Ooh, it finally happened, she exclaimed joyfully. I kept wondering how many more years it would take before you started dating. I'm glad we could make you happy, Adrian replied seriously. It seems our efforts were not in vain. Oh, come on, let's get started. Time is not waiting. Strangely, Brittany felt that this rehearsal was different. As if before, she mechanically sang her confession of love. Yes, technically, everything was correct, but there was no feeling, no tremor, and joy in her voice. And judging by Ariel's smile and Adrian's shining eyes, they noticed it too. Well, today both of you were just fantastic, Ariel said cheerfully when they finished. I'm very pleased too, Adrian replied. Especially that it's all over, and we can go for dinner. Let's skip it this time, Ariel suggested. No way, Brittany protested unexpectedly. Just because Adrian and I are dating now doesn't mean we can't hang out together as a trio. I fully support that, Adrian stated seriously. Especially since we missed your jokes over the weekend. Ariel rolled her eyes. All right then. If you can't do without me, where else can you go? Let's go. Strangely, now that they were 3 together, it became even more comfortable. Apparently, the unspoken tension between Brittany and Adrian was still lingering in the air. And now, with clarified relationships, communication had become easier. Will you come to my Christmas performance? Ariel asked, dipping a potato in sauce. It will take place in the same theater, but on the main stage, not the one where we rehearse. Ooh, exclaimed Brittany. I've never seen you sing on stage for real. Of course, we'll come. Definitely, I support that, said Adrian, even though I've heard it many times already. It's quite a spectacle. Of course, a potato flew into his nose. In a good way. Quite a spectacle, he quickly added, dodging another projectile. That's great, Ariel said peacefully, putting the potato back on the plate. We'll definitely come, Brittany said again. Who else will be there? Sister with her husband and nephews. Awesome. At home, Karen was waiting for Brittany. Hello, my dear, she greeted her granddaughter. Good evening. How are you? Excellent. The day after tomorrow, you are going to the ophthalmologist. Oh, Karen, did you really make an appointment for me? I told you, and I won't tolerate any refusals. Brittany chuckled. Okay, I won't argue. When is your final concert? Technically, it's before Christmas, but there's still a long way to go. The first stage is in a week. We perform in front of the teacher, and she selects 3 duets to participate in the concert. Oh, well, I have no doubt in you, Grandma. You're just like Adrian. But I understand that there are still many strong competitors. Karen shrugged casually. Confidence in victory is half the battle, she said in her instructive tone, and good preparation is the other half. Overall, nothing special happened over the next 2 days. As agreed with Karen, they went to the ophthalmologist. It was an expensive private clinic, sparkling with cleanliness and novelty. "I've never been to such places," Brittany whispered quietly. "Probably. It's very expensive here." "Don't think about it," Grandma replied calmly. When they approached the administrator and Karen introduced herself, it became clear that they were expected. The girl behind the counter almost jumped up and immediately smiled even more. "The doctor is waiting for you," she said. "Come, I'll take you." The three of them walked down a corridor with such clean floors that it made you want to take off your shoes and work on them in socks. When they reached the office, the administrator knocked, peeked inside, said something quickly, and then turned to them. "Please, come in." After all the impressions the clinic left on her, Brittany dreaded to think what the doctor would be like. It seemed that there, too, everything would be frightening, strict, expensive, and pompous. "Good day. Come in. Have a seat," came a calm, soft female voice. Behind the desk sat a pleasant woman in her 50s, somewhat resembling Karen. Confidence and experience emanated from her, the kind of doctor who wouldn't assert herself at the patient's expense, explaining things in a condescending manner. "My name is Maria." The doctor introduced herself. "I'm Brittany." "Nice to meet you, Brittany. Do you want Karen to stay, or would you prefer to talk alone?" Brittany shrugged and thought that both she and her grandmother would feel more at ease if Karen stayed during the appointment. "I don't mind having my grandma here, okay? What concerns you?" Brittany began telling how some time ago she started noticing that her vision worsened by evening, and so on. The doctor attentively listened, then asked when Brittany had her eyesight last checked, if there were any previous eye problems, what she personally associates with the onset of the condition, and many other questions. "It's too early to draw any conclusions," Maria finally said. "First, let's take a look at your eyes." They moved to a special table equipped with incomprehensible devices. There, Brittany placed her chin on a stand and looked at a small picture inside the device, which became clearer and more distinct. They checked her vision using a chart, then conducted several more examinations, and although it was hard to say definitively from the doctor's face, for some reason, Brittany's heart tightened with a premonition of bad news. "Well," the doctor said when they had tried all the devices available in the office, "there are definitely problems. Of course, I still have doubts because this condition is very rare at such a young age. But it's a serious matter." "What's wrong with her?" Karen asked with a firm voice. Brittany noticed how her grandmother clenched the sides of her bag with whitened fingers. She herself froze, as if unwilling to believe what she had heard. "If this is what I think, it's good that you sought help now. We'll start the treatment immediately. There's a chance that the deterioration of your vision, if not reversed, will at least slow down." "So, I can't return to my previous vision?" Brittany timidly asked. "And this isn't a temporary condition due to exhaustion or something?" Maria sadly shook her head. "I wish it were so, but unfortunately not. I can see that some internal eye structures have already undergone serious, irreversible changes." Brittany felt tears welling up. "And what's the cause?" Karen asked. "What triggered the disease?" "Unfortunately, we don't have a clear answer to that question," Maria replied. "As I mentioned, it's rare at a young age, and if in the elderly we can explain everything by age-related changes or complications from chronic diseases, post-infection, I don't see any such signs in Brittany." "All right," Grandma said. "Then we'll start the treatment and come to you for consultations." Maria nodded. "I'll write everything down for you now, and please try to tune into a positive mindset. It will help with the treatment." As they drove home, Karen tightly held her granddaughter's hand. "Don't worry," she said. "We'll handle everything." Adrian and Ariel sensed that something was wrong with Brittany. At first, she wanted to say nothing, but she was so upset that her friends noticed and didn't leave her until she finally confessed. "Everything will be fine," the confident Ariel declared. "We are with you, and you can always count on our help and support. You'll start the treatment, get better, and in a month, you'll forget you ever worried like this," Adrian assured confidently, pressing Brittany tightly against his broad chest. In his warm, strong embrace, Brittany wanted to believe that everything would indeed be fine. And she did believe. The rest of the week passed unnoticed. Even during rehearsals, they were less anxious. Brittany's illness consumed all her thoughts. She began treatment, but the first results would only be evident after a month. So, Kimberly solemnly announced in her steel-like voice, "For participation in the final concert, I present the following pair, Anderson and Jones. Now, step onto the stage and bask in the applause." "See," Adrian whispered to Brittany, gently brushing her lips. "We made it." Brittany shivered from his voice and touch, and she smiled. "Oh," Ariel said, "I promised myself not to get nervous, and here I am, getting jittery." "Brittany, how are you?" "Then let's go down. I saw Adrian has already arrived." It was so comforting that she would have a whole support group at her first concert, Ariel and Karen. And on stage, her beloved would be standing right there. Brittany looked at him. Adrian was focused on driving, but catching her glance peripherally, he turned his head, gave her a smile, and reached out, holding her hand for a couple of seconds. "I'm okay, but I'm nervous too. After making it to this stage, now I want to secure the first place." Ariel laughed. There it is, the awakening of the winner's spirit. Adrian approached his girlfriend, took her hands, and looked into her eyes. "Actually," he began, "I'm confident we'll take the first place. But even if, by any chance, we don't, we'll still give them the best performance they'll ever see in their lives." Brittany smiled, rose on her toes, and kissed him. Next to Adrian, her anxiety always receded. On the day of the concert, Brittany felt her headache intensifying with each passing hour. Then, it transmitted to her eyes, as if heavy weights were placed on her eyeballs. It was probably all due to nervousness. She didn't dare to take a sedative, fearing she might relax too much and couldn't deliver the necessary emotions during the performance. "Ready?" Karen asked her. Brittany forced a smile. "Ready." They performed somewhere in the middle. Despite the nervousness, Brittany was sure they both gave their best. Although, of course, the other two duets were strong as well. Anna Smith with the flashy sophomore, if not impressing with vocal skills, still sang very decently and looked and carried themselves on stage brighter than anyone. The third duet turned out surprisingly good too. A freshman boy perfectly matched the girl, and both had strong, well-placed voices. "Well, what are our chances?" Adrian asked Brittany. She shrugged. "Probably 1 out of 3. I liked how the guys performed." "Me too," nodded the guy. "Mind if I step away for a moment? Chat with some classmates?" "No, of course, go ahead." Adrian worked over to a group of guys he knew. Seeing that his back was turned to her, Brittany sighed, rubbed her temples forcefully, and closed her eyes for a few seconds. Her eyes felt like they were being squeezed by invisible clamps. "So, Brittany, why are you sitting here dozing off?" Unexpectedly came Kimberly's voice from above Brittany. Brittany struggled to open her eyes and looked at the teacher. It was challenging for her to focus on the teacher's face. After 5 minutes, the award ceremony, Kimberly continued to grumble. "Go. Get backstage." "Okay, Kimberly," the girl said. "I'll just call Adrian." "I'll call Adrian myself," the teacher said sharply. "Boys and girls come out from different sides backstage. So come on. Go to the right. The other girls are already there." "Okay," Brittany said. She gathered all her willpower, stood up, and walked. The whole surrounding world was blurring, as if she were looking at it through thick, dark bottle glass. Brittany struggled to get backstage, saw Anna and another girl mainly by the color of their dresses, and stood next to them. She couldn't wait for all of this to be over. She closed her eyes and leaned against the wall behind her. "Brittany, are you okay?" She heard Anna's voice. "You look all pale." "It's okay. Just a bit of a headache," Brittany replied. "Oh, well, look, if anything, I have a painkiller." "Thanks. Not needed. The ceremony is about to start." "All right." She wanted either to lie down on the floor or just leave here as quickly as possible. Go home, close the curtains tightly in her room, and get under the blanket with her head. She just had to hold on for a few more minutes. At that moment, the hosts came on stage and began the closing speech. "So, in third place are..." Brittany barely heard what they said next. She weakly opened her eyes and saw a sophomore girl passing by her. Brittany turned her gaze towards the stage and realized that she could only see the outlines of people, like blurry elongated spots of different colors. "And now we invite the two remaining pairs to the stage to announce the winner." "Brittany, let's go." She heard Anna's voice. Brittany weakly nodded, tried to focus. Nothing worked. The surrounding world looked like a heap of spots. "Something is definitely wrong with you." Anna's voice came again. In a hoarse voice, Brittany said, "I can't see anything." "So, what do you mean? And where are our lovely girls? Hurry up. Your gentlemen are already on stage." The host shouted. Brittany felt tears welling up in her eyes. She couldn't go on stage. She couldn't even see where to go. "All right. Let's do this." Anna's voice came. In the next moment, Brittany felt a thin but strong female hand firmly grasping her waist, pulling her forward. "Just walk," Anna whispered almost into her ear. "I'll guide you." And smile. Brittany, for some reason unknown to herself, trusted her competitor. Together, arm in arm like best friends, they stepped onto the stage. "Lower your eyes down as if you're shy," Anna continued to command in a hushed tone. At that moment, Brittany thought that Anna would somehow trick her, push her off the stage, or make her bump into someone. But nothing like that happened. True, at some point, there was an unclear pause. She heard Anna whispering again but couldn't make out what she was saying and to whom. Then, Brittany smelled the familiar scent of men's cologne, and instead of the female hand, her waist was now embraced by large, warm, familiar hands from both sides. Another voice sounded above the scent. "I'm with you. Everything is fine." Brittany nodded and felt a bit calmer. In first place, Adrian Jones and Brittany Anderson. The hall exploded with applause and cheers. The colored spots around her flickered even more. Adrian pressed Brittany against him, shielding her from the world and not letting anyone realize that something was wrong. She leaned against his chest and pretended not to want or be able to break away. Everyone smiled. They were quickly handed a diploma, and it was announced that the session was automatically closed. What happened next, Brittany could barely understand. All she knew was that miraculously, either imperceptibly, he led her off the stage, guided by Anna through a back door to his car, and within a minute, Ariel and Karen ran up to them. "Brittany, what's going on?" Ariel asked. "I don't know," she replied. "Something with my eyes. I can hardly see anything." "All right," Grandma said, as collected as ever. "I'll call Maria now." A few minutes later, they were speeding to the clinic. Brittany sat in the back seat. Ariel held her hand. Karen hugged her shoulders, and she thought about Anna Smith, who unexpectedly was the first to realize that something had happened to her and came to help. And all this time, she had hated her, even felt ashamed. "We'll have to thank her later," she thought. "We've arrived." Adrian's voice echoed. They helped Brittany out of the car and led her somewhere, through the opening doors of an elevator, then again through a corridor. "Hello, Brittany." She heard a familiar voice. "Good evening, Maria." What happened? Brittany began to tell her story. Maria just listened in silence, and Brittany understood that things were not good. Then they examined her with some instruments, though this time she didn't comprehend what they were doing to her. "You need to be admitted to the hospital," the doctor said. "Are you serious?" Karen asked. "I'm afraid so, but we'll do everything we can." Brittany was discharged from the hospital only at the end of December. She underwent intensive treatment, and it partially helped. Her vision didn't return to its previous level, but it improved slightly. Later, they provided her with glasses with powerful lenses, and only with them could she barely read large font on her phone screen or a book. And even then, not for long. Her eyes would quickly tire. On December 31st, Adrian came to visit her. Most of the patients had been discharged. Brittany lay in the ward alone, and somehow he persuaded the doctors to let him stay with her for New Year's. Go celebrate with friends, family, Brittany told him. Why do you want to stay here? Because I plan to spend this new year with you, Adrian calmly replied. Brittany started to cry. Hey, she heard his voice and felt a warm embrace. Come on, Brittany. Everything will be fine. It won't be fine anymore. We'll get through this. We need to break up, Brittany muttered. Why? Because I'm almost blind. So what? Adrian. What? Adrian. I love you. Brittany cried even harder. The guy sighed and seated her on his lap like a little girl. Brittany, I understand everything. You're going through a very tough time right now. I don't know how I would behave in your place, but I want you to know that I love you and will always be by your side. Ariel and Karen will be there too. After New Year's, her parents and Gwen arrived. Mom cried. Dad was serious, and Gwen held her older sister's hands and constantly comforted her. That's it. Get your documents. Take academic leave. We're going home, Deborah decisively declared. Mom, Brittany said calmly. I'm not going home, and I don't intend to quit my studies. How do you plan to continue studying? Brittany shrugged. I'll just continue. I'm not the first person in the world with weak eyesight to attend university. It will be much more challenging for you than other students. I understand that. She's not alone, Adrian, who had been in the room the whole time, said firmly. I'll drive her to and from classes, and I can manage to attend classes by myself, Brittany added. We've already figured out how a person with my problems can study and move around. Mom sighed heavily and took her daughter's hand. Understand your dad and me correctly, she said. We just want you to be okay. Brittany felt her mother's hand and covered it with her own. Mama, I won't be okay if I quit my studies, come back to you, and spend the whole day sitting at home on your neck. Okay, Bernard interjected. It's your decision. But know that we are always here and ready to welcome you home. Thank you, Dad. The next day, after Brittany was discharged from the hospital, the premiere of a play in which Ariel sang was scheduled. Will you come? Her friend cautiously asked her. I'll understand if you refuse. I'll come, Brittany replied. Firstly, poor eyesight is not a reason to miss the joys of life. Secondly, you'll be singing. And fortunately, my hearing is fine. Ariel laughed and hugged her friend tightly. Going to Ariel's play became Brittany's first trial in her new life. But she decided not to give up and would do everything to live as fully as possible. Walking in her large, clumsy glasses with thick lenses, tightly holding Adrian's hand, Brittany felt, or rather sensed, the many pairs of eyes looking at her with curiosity and pity. At any moment, Adrian whispered in her ear, if you don't like something, we'll stand up and leave. Brittany nodded but then pulled herself together. Thank you, she replied. I'll be fine. They sat in the front row, but Brittany could barely see anything happening on the stage. Luckily, Ariel had told her everything in advance. You don't have to pay much attention to the beginning, her friend had said. Firstly, I'm not there. Secondly, it's the most banal backstory in the world. Santa Claus in an ice palace is gathering gifts for the new year. They check if everything is prepared, and so on. Boring. Stretched out for about 15 minutes. Brittany heard Adrian, sitting next to her, laughing. A big surprise awaits you, he said. I appear a little later. I'll be an elf. No way, Brittany exclaimed. Perfect role, Adrian said. It was strange to attend the play and only listen to it. Brittany could only guess what was happening on stage. It helped that Adrian was sitting next to her, providing key moments and occasionally lightening the mood with his comments. Now Santa Claus is awkwardly waving his hands, grabbing his head as if it's about to fall off. He would say. Brittany could barely contain her laughter. The second act ended well. Additionally, Brittany could finally appreciate her friend's vocal talents. Before this, she had only heard Ariel sing during rehearsals when she taught Brittany and Adrian to sing duets. But today, Brittany heard Ariel, so to speak, in her element for the first time. Perhaps it played a role that now Brittany could focus solely on the voice without being distracted by other components. And Ariel's voice was wonderful. After the play, they went to congratulate her. I don't understand how, with such talent, you used to compliment me, Brittany said. I've never heard anything more beautiful in my life. Oh, stop it. Ariel chuckled, although it was clear that she was very pleased. I suggest, as a tradition, to have dinner together, Adrian said. Let's go to our favorite place, and then we can go to my place. Great idea. After the New Year holidays, Brittany returned to her studies. She had informed the dean's office in advance about the change in her health condition. I don't even know, Brittany, the head of the academic department said cautiously. Unfortunately, our university has no experience in teaching students with health issues similar to yours. Maybe you should give yourself a year for recovery and adaptation. I promise we'll keep your place and scholarship. Brittany shook her head. Thank you for your offer, but I manage. I don't need any special conditions. There are people who will help me cope with the difficulties in studying, and I'm absolutely sure I don't want to take an academic leave. The head nodded. All right, Brittany, if that's your decision, I won't dissuade you. From our side, I promise to do everything to make your learning experience as comfortable as possible. On the very first day, Brittany decided to talk to Anna. Thank you for helping me back then. She turned to her longtime rival. It was very unexpected, and you truly saved me that day. Oh, come on, stop it, Anna gently replied. Anyone in my place would have done the same. Not everyone would have figured out so quickly what had happened to me. Brittany heard Anna bitterly chuckle. Unfortunately, I have experience in such matters. What do you mean? My grandfather's eyesight deteriorated due to diabetes. When problems with pressure joined in, he would instantly go blind during sudden spikes. When it started, I was still a child. I remember the first time it happened when we were out for a walk together. I was playing on the playground, and he was supposed to watch over me. In the end, I had to lead him home. Luckily, it wasn't too far. Sorry, I didn't know about that. No wondered. Anyway, I'm really sorry that this happened to you. If anything, I'm always here and ready to help. Thank you, Anna. Brittany sincerely thanked her. I didn't know you were like this. Now I even feel ashamed for thinking of you as a superficial mean girl before. Anna smiled again. You are not the only one. Many people think the same. From that day on, the girls became friends. Brittany felt relieved that she now had a classmate with whom she could move around the campus, attending classes together. However, she still memorized the routes herself, searched for landmarks, and tried to act as independently as possible. Even at home, Brittany demanded that Karen give her some household responsibilities, starting with simple tasks like washing vegetables or fruits for lunch, taking dishes out of the dishwasher, and arranging them in their places, or hanging laundry. Over time, Brittany became accustomed to her weak eyesight, and everything became easier. Time passed. Brittany excelled in her studies. Problems with vision seemed to open something new in her. She stopped feeling embarrassed and afraid as she did at the beginning. Maybe because now she couldn't see the reactions of those around her. She stopped caring about what others would think of her and how they would react. Brittany, I like you more and more, Kimberly once told her. You're shining like a real star now. Oddly enough, you look much more confident on stage than before the illness. Thank you, Brittany replied. I feel it myself. Despite everything, Brittany was still suffering a lot. She and Karen continued to have regular checkups with Maria. Brittany underwent supportive treatment, but unfortunately, gradually, very slowly, her vision deteriorated. Is there really no hope? her grandmother asked. "We are willing to try any treatment methods," Maria shrugged. "Experimental surgeries in this direction are just beginning. But it's still too early to talk about any results. Everything that modern medicine can offer you at the moment, we are doing." Karen frowned and looked out the window. She was not satisfied with such an answer. However, Brittany sat calmly next to her. She had long accepted the situation. Brittany was confident that she would complete her studies and obtain a diploma. She even had a rough idea that she might pursue a career as a singer. After the final concert of the second year, some people approached her, inquiring about her future plans. Anna, who was nearby, mentioned that they looked very representative. However, Brittany understood it not only by the appearance but also by their voice and manner of speaking. The only thing troubling her was her relationship with Adrian. No, she still loved him, and vice versa. With each passing month, their feelings grew stronger, but she constantly wondered, what was it like for him to be around her? Perhaps he continued the relationship only because he was too noble to leave her. Or was it just out of pity? Thinking about it was painful, and Brittany decided to share her doubts with Anna. Ariel would undoubtedly convince her that she had invented everything, but she expected objectivity from Anna. "Are you out of your mind?" Anna said after listening to everything. "Why on earth would such thoughts even cross your mind? Wouldn't you have such thoughts if you were in my place?" Brittany asked. Anna fell silent, looking perplexed. "Maybe," she finally admitted honestly. "Maybe I would, but I would think that it reflects my inner self-pity and the desire to remain alone and unhappy." Despite herself, Brittany smiled. "Can a person in their right mind want to be alone and unhappy?" Anna snorted. "It's hard to be happy. Everyone envies the happy ones and doesn't understand why they're so lucky. But being unhappy just a snap, and everyone pities you, saying, 'Oh, poor thing, luck wasn't on your side, and you don't bear any responsibility for yourself. Right? A victim of circumstances or born under an unlucky star. It seems very convenient to me." Brittany smiled. "Perhaps you're right, but I don't have the right to decide for others. I don't want to make Adrian unhappy. I think you are currently doing just that, trying to make a decision for Adrian. And he, by the way, is an adult and seems to be a reasonable guy. Surely, he has thought about your relationship himself. And if he's still with you, it means it's the best decision for him." Brittany had no words for this. Of course, she could have talked to her younger sister, but Gwen had gone to study in the United Kingdom over a year ago. It turned out she had long ago selected a university there, applied, submitted her portfolio, and successfully passed the selection process. The parents, of course, were shocked and initially reluctant to let her go. They hoped Gwen would live with her sister. Karen was not against having another granddaughter and helping Brittany. They had a family meeting. "I am not disabled," Brittany firmly said, "and I don't need someone constantly watching over me. Especially my younger sister, who has her own path and goals in life, just like I do." Gwen gently squeezed her sister's hand under the table. The parents exchanged glances, expressed some apparent outrage for show, but eventually let go. Gwen's studies were going well. Boldness, talent, and innate sociability helped her easily adapt and become popular in her new environment. Certainly, Brittany missed her sister, but she understood that they were both no longer little girls, and each was ready to go her own way, no matter how that path unfolded. After Brittany adjusted, and her life fell into a new familiar routine, there were no more significant incidents. Studies, meetings with Adrian, friendly gatherings with Ariel and Anna sometimes. The three girls would go to Angelina's spa became a routine. Quiet evenings with Karen, sharing news over dinner, were also part of the routine. Periodically, Brittany and Adrian would visit her parents in the city. The only thing that bothered Brittany was that, during all this time, Adrian hadn't introduced her to his parents. She tried several times to delicately bring up the subject, but he always responded that they were busy, too occupied, and not particularly interested in his life. Brittany decided to ask Ariel about it. "You're acquainted with Adrian's parents, aren't you?" she inquired. "Well, yes, generally," her friend replied. "I used to meet them more often when I was a child. They occasionally interact with my parents. I can't remember the last time I saw them. Probably a couple of years ago." "What are they like?" "Well, kind of strict." "Why do you ask?" "Why doesn't Adrian want to introduce me to them?" Brittany heard her friend sigh. "Well, they are busy people. Both work a lot." "Ariel, I may have lost my sight, but my hearing has become sharper. I can perfectly hear when you lie, especially since you're not good at it." Her friend sighed. "Okay, you're persistent. First of all, don't talk to Adrian about it." "I wasn't planning to. Secondly, this is just my assumption." "Fine. And I think Adrian is worried that his parents might mistreat you." "How so?" "Well, they love their son very much and are protective of him, and a blind girl won't suit them." "Kind of like that. But overall, they're not very tactful and understanding, to put it mildly." Brittany nodded. That's what she expected. Ariel hugged her. "Hey," she said softly. "I'm not sure. Maybe they really are just too busy. His father and mother have their own businesses, and they are very occupied." "Okay. Anyway, thanks for telling me. You'd better off not knowing. Now you'll think about it. I want to understand what's happening around me." "I understand." For a while, that was enough. Brittany calmed down and let the situation go. The day of their graduation approached. Brittany and Anna were entrusted with singing the final song. They rehearsed their stage entrance, and Brittany didn't even need assistance. Over the years, she had adapted well and grown accustomed to relying on her hearing, memory, and touch. "Brittany, excellent," Kimberly shouted. "Anna, why are you working so unevenly?" "Sorry, Kimberly." Anna smiled cheerfully. "No apologies. Start over." And the girls obediently scattered to different ends of the stage. "I think she was expecting us to faint," Anna whispered at the end of the rehearsal. "I completely agree," Brittany replied. "But today, we proved her wrong." "Exactly today. And we still have tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and 3 whole weeks until graduation." "We'll manage," Brittany said cheerfully. "But for now, maybe let's go somewhere." Initially, the girl felt hesitant about leaving the house. Brittany felt like everyone's eyes were on her. Being around Adrian, Ariel, or Karen made her extremely uncomfortable and embarrassed. One day, Karen noticed this and said to her granddaughter, "Brittany, life is short. You can't change the past, and the future doesn't exist. You only have the present moment, and you should make the most of it. Do you want to spend it at home just because you are concerned about what others might think?" "I don't want you to feel awkward around me," Brittany replied. "We don't feel that way," her grandmother reassured her. "What if I fall? We'll help you up." "What if I drop or spill something? We'll ask the waiter to clean it up." "What if?" Brittany, her grandmother couldn't hold back. "Do you think people with perfect vision never dropped a fork in a restaurant or spilled wine or coffee?" Maybe they did. Put yourself in their shoes. For example, if you had seen a visually impaired girl or someone in a wheelchair before, what would you have thought? Stay at home. Don't go out. Tears welled up in Brittany's eyes. "No, Grandma. I wouldn't have thought that. I would have noticed, but immediately returned to my group." "So why do you think you'd become the center of attention for others?" Karen asked. "I don't know." After that, Brittany started to work outside more actively and go out with Adrian and her friends. Of course, she encountered different people. Sometimes she heard strange whispers or conversations about herself. With Adrian, it was very rare. His appearance was intimidating enough to prevent anyone from saying something inappropriate. However, Brittany was also safe with the girls. Both Ariel and, as it turned out, Anna, were fierce. "Do you have any questions?" Ariel could sharply turn towards anyone whose glance or comment towards Brittany she didn't like. "If you're so bold, come and say it to my face," Anna shouted at someone once. In general, Brittany calmly worked with Anna to their favorite cafe. It was not far from the university, and they were already known there. Girls, the usual for you. Double cappuccino, pomegranate raff, and 2 honey pastries. The waiter taking their order asked, "Mm." Anna coquettishly said in an artificially deep voice, addressing the waiter, "It's so nice that you remember. How could I forget you?" The young man flirtatiously replied, "Brittany." Anna turned to her friend. "What shall we tell the charming young man?" Brittany smiled. "I'd like something new," she said. "I agree." Brittany couldn't see, but she imagined that at these words, her friend shot a glance at the waiter. "What interesting options can you offer us?" Brittany asked. The guy cleared his throat and replied, "We have wonderful teas. Sweet honey, juicy strawberries, and light notes of blueberries." "Perfect. Bring the tea part right away," Brittany said. "And will the ladies have dessert?" "What's your most delicious dessert?" The air was charged with their flirtation. Brittany, at some point, even felt relieved that her vision was impaired. Otherwise, she wouldn't know where to hide her eyes. "It seems I know what can please you," the waiter said. "Really? Berry pastries with fresh juicy berries. Bring it." Brittany sighed, unable to endure the continuation of the dialogue. Apparently, by the tone of her voice, the waiter understood that the performance had dragged on. "Yes, of course, everything will be ready soon." He left. "Well, there you go," Anna said disappointedly. "Wait," Brittany cautiously said. "I thought you were serious with that sophomore. We broke up a long time ago." "Well, you didn't even tell me." "Well, there was nothing serious there. So, now you've set your sights on our waiter." "Well, maybe." "Hush, he's coming." "Ladies, your order." He placed the teapot and pastries on the table. "You know," Anna said after a few minutes, "I might actually be into this guy. He's got taste. Maybe they just cook well here." Brittany replied, "Oh well, I give up. I just liked him." "You should have said so from the beginning." After some time, Anna asked, "Have you thought about where you'll work after graduation?" "Yes. One producer made me an offer. We haven't discussed it thoroughly yet, but he seems like a decent guy." "Well," Anna exclaimed admirably, "and I still perform in a bar with my band." "Well, you guys are doing great," Brittany replied, recalling how she and Adrian attended her friend's performance. "And there's so much ahead of you." Anna snorted. "Yeah, but we've been performing for 7 years, and there's been no progress. People will notice you, I'm sure." "I hope so." Brittany remembered her graduation for a lifetime. Firstly, because it's a day that hundreds of thousands of other graduates remember. A day when years of hard work, carefree student life, endless lectures, classes, and exams come to an end, and it's time to sum up. Secondly, it ended unexpectedly. When Anna and Brittany sang the final song, everyone applauded, and the girls were ready to leave the stage when the host's voice rang out. "Wait a moment. Attention. We have one more announcement." There was some noise, and for a moment, Brittany felt Anna squeezing her hand. "What's happening?" she asked. Her friend replied, "You'll understand in a moment." "Okay," Brittany managed to mutter quietly. The hall buzzed, and Brittany saw something big and familiar approaching her. A few seconds later, she smelled a familiar scent. "Brittany," her beloved voice echoed through the microphone. She felt her knees giving in. "I love you," Adrian continued, "and I really want you to be my wife. I want to spend my entire life with you." Adrian gently took Brittany's hand, and she realized he had knelt down in front of her. "Are you willing?" he asked without the microphone. "Yes," she quietly replied. "Really?" "Yes." "She agrees." The host thundered into the microphone. The hall erupted with applause. Anna, standing nearby, shouted, "Hooray!" Adrian, lifting Brittany in his arms, spun around. "Do your parents know that you proposed to me?" Brittany asked. "Not yet." "Are you going to keep me a secret forever?" "Brittany, I'm not hiding you." "Then why don't they know about me yet?" she asked. "Because." Adrian fell silent. "Why?" she insisted. "They are very strict and conservative. Let's say," He mumbled, and they won't approve of a blind bride. They wouldn't approve of any bride. He took her hand. Brittany, I love you, and I don't care what my parents think. We will get married secretly. No, I'll just confront them with the fact. Brittany sighed. Maybe we shouldn't rush with the wedding then, she suggested. But I want to marry you, Adrian replied. I want that too, but I think maybe we should settle down first, find jobs, and then start thinking about the wedding. And we'll need money for it, won't we? We have money, not your parents' money, Adrian. Brittany, I've been working since I was 18. As what? I started as a producer's assistant, and now I plan to open my own agency. Oh, you never told me that. We haven't really talked about it. So, you're not planning to sing yourself? That's why you haven't talked about work for a whole year? No. Then why did you go to college? My parents insisted on getting a higher education, and music is the only thing I can do, love, and understand. Turns out, I didn't know you at all. Adrian sighed. Maybe we really shouldn't rush with the wedding, he suggested. Agreed. At that moment, Brittany felt that their relationship was in jeopardy. Oh, I don't know, Karen, she told her grandmother. I thought we knew everything about each other after all these years of dating. But now, it turns out, he has his own life and a bunch of secrets. We all have our secrets, Brittany, Karen wisely remarked. Well, that's true. What about the fact that he doesn't intend to introduce me to his parents? I agree. I don't like that part either. I'm afraid we might not be the people we pretend to be for each other. Do you love him? Yes. And does he love you? Well, it seems like he does. Then you have a chance. Do you think so? Yes. I've been watching you all these years and seen love and understanding. I hope these disagreements won't become a serious obstacle. They didn't get married, partly because there simply wasn't time for it. After university, Brittany, Adrian, Anna, and other former students actively pursued job opportunities and self-realization. Brittany was dating a producer who introduced himself as Carl. She was mentally surprised at how easily and casually she conversed with him. In her first year, she would have been trembling with nervousness, but now she talked as if her future career didn't depend on it. To some extent, it didn't. In the past week, 2 more people had called expressing interest in collaborating. So, what do you think? Carl responded. You have a higher musical education, a beautiful and well-tuned voice. I saw your performance at the graduation, saw how you behave on stage. You are almost a ready-made star. Please forgive me for such a banal comparison, but you are the diamond that I want to limit to the purest cut brilliance. Thank you for the compliments, Brittany replied. It's always nice to hear them, especially from a professional like you. Thank you, Brittany. But while listing my virtues, you didn't mention my main flaw. I have very poor eyesight. And here Brittany couldn't help but swallow. This topic was still painful for her. With each passing year, it only gets worse. And this is the dark facet of the diamond that you won't clear with any cut. She heard Carl chuckle softly. Yes, Brittany, he said, my assumptions were entirely correct. You're not only incredibly talented and beautiful, but also a very smart girl. Of course, when I considered you as my new ward, I knew about this particular feature of yours. Feature? Brittany asked. Exactly. There's no point in calling it an illness, a flaw, or something else. Allow me to be a little cynical. I look at you not only as a person and a living being, but also as a product that can be sold well or poorly. I hope I didn't offend you with such a comparison. No, Brittany smiled. On the contrary. Such sincerity is appealing to me. I'm glad. So, your story is interesting, unique, and challenging. This is precisely what the audience wants. Essentially, they don't care about your vocal range and how well you sing. That's important, of course. Between a singer with a voice and a singer without a voice, they'll always choose the former. But what to do when both have a good voice? That's when they look at the person behind the voice. You've grasped the essence. The audience wants to relate to their favorite singer, empathize with her, but not pity her. Mind you, you're a strong and independent girl that commands respect and admiration. Your story can inspire tens of thousands of other people with vision problems, and them too. But try to broaden your horizons. Others can project your experience onto themselves. It works on the principle of if she could, I can too. Just imagine, you can make someone's life better, brighter, give someone hope and fulfill a dream simply by singing, performing in concerts, and existing. Exactly. You tell it all very enticingly. Thank you. It's my job. Of course, I'm not going to deceive you and say that everything will be quick, easy, and simple for you, or rather, I hope for us. There is a tremendous amount of work ahead. In the first 2 or 3 years, you won't be able to relax and take it easy. And even beyond that, you'll need to keep working constantly. But if you love what you do, you will undoubtedly enjoy the result. I'll think about it, Brittany said. I'll eagerly await your decision, Carl replied. Brittany consulted with Ariel, Adrian, and Karen. They studied the proposed contract, gathered all available information about the producer through official and unofficial sources. It all looks decent, Adrian summarized. I showed the contract to lawyers. They said everything is clean. And there are no bad rumors about him either. In the creative industry, such things spread quickly. The only thing they say is that he is very strict and demanding. Well, that doesn't scare me, Brittany said. Then, can I congratulate you? Wait, let's sign the contract first. Then you can congratulate me. Adrian chuckled. You've become quite serious. Learned it from you, Brittany replied in a teasing tone. The contract was signed. From that moment on, for the next 3 years, Brittany's life revolved around work. Of course, when she agreed, she understood that there would be a lot of work, but she didn't anticipate it would be this much. Well, what do you think? Ariel asked a few months later. We don't need to talk about wedding preparations yet, do we? They were out together in a restaurant for the first time in a long while. And Brittany sighed. It's hard for me to tell you about wedding preparations because there aren't any. And sometimes, I even forget that I was supposed to get married. Oh. Ariel almost stood up. What's this news? Brittany laughed. Everything is fine. Adrian and I are doing well. But in general, it's because both of us are so busy right now that there's no time to think about the wedding. I'm disappointed, her friend declared. I was already looking for a bridesmaid dress. Go ahead. Look, but don't buy it yet. Maybe the fashion will change 10 more times. But are you okay? Yes, of course, Brittany exclaimed confidently. And what about the issue with Adrian's parents? Brittany sighed. No progress. We don't even talk about it. Understood. Do you want me to talk to him about it? Brittany wrinkled her nose. No, thanks. Let it be as it is. Well, look, Adrian replied. Okay. Why are we all about me? Any news from you? Ariel shrugged. Then, realizing, responded aloud. Nothing particularly new. I work at the same theater, but there are a couple of interesting new roles. That's interesting. When can we buy tickets? Ariel laughed. Soon. Brittany continued to live with Karen. They discussed it for a long time together. Adrian really wanted his girlfriend to live with him, but both of them were working a lot. Guys, Karen said, of course, it's up to you. From my side, I'll just say that I'm happy Brittany is living with me, and I'll be happy if she decides to continue living with me. So decide for yourselves. I also want Brittany to live with me, Adrian said. Brittany hesitated. You work all the time, she finally said. I also work all the time. We will hardly see each other, and it will be difficult for me to settle into a new home if we get married there. Yes, eventually. But for now, I'll stay here. Not if we get married. But when? Adrian said sternly. Brittany and Karen laughed. Of course, such intense work bore fruit, and the results were very good. In 3 years, Brittany became a recognizable singer. And overall, everything was going as Carl had predicted. I definitely like what I do, Brittany told him. I also like what you do, he said. I get messages every day from girls and boys about how I inspire them. I never doubted that would happen. I also constantly receive messages. You are invited to various charity events. I really want to perform at them. We already perform a lot in hospitals, orphanages, and so on. However, there are even more requests. But we can't perform only there, Adrian explained. Probably. Yes, unfortunately, your performances there are free. And we need money. I won't even mention making a profit. We need to pay the whole team: stylist, makeup artist, costume designer, lighting musicians, and so on. Yes, I understand, Brittany said. I know you're a smart girl. Finally, the day came when Adrian approached Brittany and reminded her about the wedding. That's how it happened. Brittany, he said, it's time for us to get married. Well, she said in surprise. Time, exactly. We are both accomplished and established. I'm tired of playing the groom. How much longer can I do that? It's indecent. Brittany laughed. Okay, let's get married. If you want, I'll take care of organizing the wedding. You know, on the one hand, it sounds tempting. I promise it won't be at the expense of parents' money. That's good. I'm surprised you brought it up yourself. It's time already. So, what are we going to do? Get acquainted. You know, over these years, I've stopped attaching such importance to it. Let me just meet them at the wedding. Really? Are you sure? Of course, that's a great idea. So they decided. However, Karen was against it. Of course, it's your business. But I don't like this situation. Who knows who they might turn out to be? Oh, come on. Brittany waved her hand. I hope so. The main thing is not to spoil the wedding. Well, they are adults, okay? Since you've decided, let it be. The wedding was scheduled for the summer. Brittany learned the details gradually. She fully trusted Adrian. He knew her tastes well, and in a way, it was even interesting to see what would come out. The wedding will be outdoors. Her future husband informed her. Well, that's something. How do you like it? He asked, concerned. Brittany smiled perfectly. I've always wanted a summer wedding. And why have it in the summer if we're not going to make the most of it? I thought the same way, Adrian replied. Adrian happily kissed the bride on the cheek. It's time for you, Ariel, and Anna to get involved in all these wedding things. What things? You know, choosing the dress, shoes, makeup, and hairstyles. Brittany laughed. I won't see any of it anyway. So I won't nitpick, and I think we can handle it quickly. I will see it, Adrian said quietly. She found his hand and pressed it to her lips. Sorry, I didn't think. Of course, we'll take care of this with the girls. It was strange to choose a dress that she wouldn't see. Brittany relied on her friends' opinions and her own tactile sensations. This feels too coarse. And this, on the contrary, is somehow lifelessly soft. She understood that it might be strange to judge this way, but it was the only way she could feel. This is too voluminous, Ariel said. It's been out of fashion for like 20 years. Agreed, Anna said. Let's try this on. But this one has too open a top. You're not marrying a 50-year-old oligarch. However, when the bride tried on that particular dress, everyone liked it. Brittany felt the delicate, smooth, warm, and pleasant-to-touch fabric, the subtle relief embroidery. So, how does it look? She asked when she put it on because the girls were strangely silent. Finally, Anna spoke up. Perfect. And Ariel added, I think we found it. Choosing shoes was both easier and more challenging at the same time. Of course, they could be touched. But in this case, Brittany found it difficult to specify requirements for the external appearance. Thus, she focused on comfort, while her friends made sure they complemented the dress. They settled on classic semi-closed shoes with a small heel. Now, I wonder how we'll choose the makeup and hairstyle, Anna said. They found a way. Brittany roughly described to the makeup artist and hairstylist what she wanted and what she definitely wouldn't like. Anna and Ariel ensured that the result matched. I really like it. Me too. Brittany nodded. She couldn't check the result here, so she had to trust her friends. However, later, an unpleasant discovery was made. The stylists didn't travel outside the city where the wedding was supposed to take place. No big deal. Ariel reassured the bride. I can do everything. Don't worry. On the wedding day, I'll recreate it perfectly. What would I do without you? Brittany said. I'd go to the wedding without all this and save a lot of money. Anna replied. Especially considering the dress and shoes are for one-time use. Oh, Anna, you're so unromantic, sighed Ariel. Brittany laughed. Well, are you ready? Ariel asked. Brittany nodded. The moment had come. She would now leave this room, where her father would greet her and escort her down the aisle between rows of guests straight to the altar, which, as Ariel told her, stood on a small elevation. There, Adrian would be waiting for her. How unfortunate that she wouldn't see any of it. Ready, Brittany replied. She heard the doors swing open, and the ceremonial music began. Someone gently took her arm. You're the most beautiful daughter, Brittany. She heard her father's voice. Brittany smiled. Good thing Gwen can't hear this. Well, today is your day, so she wouldn't mind. Thank you, Dad. I'm very happy that this day has finally come. Me too. They worked forward slowly, and Brittany felt a pleasant, gentle breeze and the scent of flowers decorating everything around. At one point, she sensed that her father squeezed her hand a bit tighter. What's going on? She asked Bernard. Everything's fine, he replied. Some guests from the groom's side just look surprised. Because I'm blind, probably. Brittany raised her head. No worries. They'll get used to it. True. Her father led her to Adrian, gently placing her hand in his palm. Brittany felt him squeeze her fingers. Then came the registrar's traditional speech about family, love, and fidelity, and the questions. Do you agree to take each other as spouses? Yes, Brittany answered. Yes, Adrian replied. After that, they descended from the platform, and all the noble solemnity of the ceremony vanished. Everyone literally rushed to congratulate them. Brittany could clearly distinguish who approached by their voice, scent, perfume, and way of speaking. Bernard and Deborah, Gwen, Ariel, Karen, Anna, former classmates, Carl, people from their team, and many others. One thing Brittany understood clearly was that Adrian's parents did not approach them. She decided not to draw attention to it and calmly walked with her husband to the table. All this time, he held her hand, but suddenly he twitched strangely and, in a voice that didn't sound like his, said, Brittany, excuse me. I need to step away for a minute. Of course, she replied, trying to maintain external composure but realizing that something was amiss inside. She sat helplessly at the table with a strained smile and a straight back. For the first time since losing her sight, she felt so helpless and alone. Perhaps her friends and parents were busy arranging the seating for numerous guests or with something else. Or maybe no one thought she wouldn't want to sit alone in plain view. Is something wrong? She heard Carl's voice nearby. Brittany tried to force an even bigger smile. Everything's fine, thank you. Just waiting for my husband. He's talking to his mother. So that's why there's such awkward whispering around me. I suppose so. She didn't know about you. No, bad. Looks like she's about to create a scene. What? Brittany asked in surprise. But she didn't get an answer from the producer, but she received it from her newly minted mother-in-law. In the sudden silence of the hall, Gabriel's loud voice rang out. She's blind. Don't embarrass me. Brittany froze in amazement. She expected anything but wasn't prepared for this. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she did everything to hold them back. Suddenly, someone took her hand. Stand up, Carl said. Take 2 steps left and then back. This way, you'll be clearly visible. Here, hold this. And start singing. Before Brittany could gather herself, a microphone appeared in her hands, and the music she immediately recognized started playing. It was her own song, the most beloved one, about love. Every time she sang it, she pictured Adrian, their entire story from the first day they met, how he chose her as his duet partner, back when she was still awkward, shy, and sighted, how he helped and supported her, how he won her friendship and then love, how he didn't abandon her when she lost her sight. Instead, he loved and cared for her even more, how he supported her decision to build a career, how he waited for this wedding, and how today he held her hand as they pledged eternal love to each other. Everything was in that song. The hall fell silent. It seemed like no one dared to even move until Britney finished the song. Then everyone applauded loudly, and Adrian ran up to his wife, scooped her into his arms, and kissed her. "Bravo!" shouted the guests. "Were you crying?" Adrian noticed tears in Britney's eyes. Sorry. I shouldn't have invited them to the wedding at all." She shook her head. "I couldn't not invite them. They're your parents. They've always been like this. I was so afraid that you'd find out about the family I grew up in and be disappointed in me." "How could you think that? I love you more than anything in the world." "I love you too." "All right, my dear," Ariel said, joining them. "I don't want to spoil the idyll, but it seems everything turned out fine." The parents sat in a corner in silence. "I think they'll never love me," Britney said thoughtfully. "I don't care about that," her husband replied. "I care that you're happy. For my happiness, I only need you." Yes, as Britney had mentioned, her parents never warmed up to her with great love. But at least, after her performance at the wedding, they understood that she loved their son and was ready to fight for happiness. And they always treated Britney politely. Things got even better when Adrian and Britney had children. First Valeria, and 2 years later, Franklin. "Are you planning to leave the stage, superstar?" Anna asked Britney, holding little Franklin in her arms. "Nope," she replied. "With nannies and household helpers, I manage everything, and Adrian doesn't mind. Of course, I'll take a few months off for maternity leave, and then back to work." "That's great. Yes, we have a completely happy family. Even my dad's parents love the grandchildren. How can you resist such little angels?" The girls laughed. "Oh, I forgot to mention one more piece of news," Britney exclaimed. "Carl found some clinic that specializes in experimental treatment for my condition. He says the results are promising, and if I don't regain full vision, there's a good chance I'll see better." "Now, that's news. You must be so happy." "Yes, I am. But you know, even without vision, I am completely happy. In any situation, the main thing is to be surrounded by close and loving people."